Welcome to SABC News. We're live from Auckland Park in South Africa on results day of the municipal elections. With 69 to 70% of the votes counted, the ANC leads nationally with 53.64% of the ballot and the DA trailing with 27.36%.
Well, the ball doesn't stop rolling until it hits the wall, and the results can only be discussed as incoming, and we will eventually talk about the results when they are officially announced by the IEC, when every vote has been counted. But for now, let's keep up pace with what's been happening throughout the country and throughout the world.
Your headlines: with almost 60% of voting districts declared nationally, the ANC is retaining its majority, albeit by a lower margin.
And sentencing procedures in the case of the woman convicted of kidnapping Zephany Nurse 19 years ago concluded in the Western Cape High Court.
And from the sports scene, of course, South Africa's under-23 soccer team clash with Brazil in their opening Olympic match.
With almost 60% of voting districts declared nationally, the ANC is retaining its majority, albeit by a lower margin. The ANC in the Eastern Cape says it's happy with the support it's receiving, especially in that province. The ruling party has been running 44 of the 45 municipalities of the province, some of which will soon be merged in an effort to reduce them to 39 after the elections.
We're quite humbled with the huge support that we've seen showed by people of this province. I think they have spoken and quite unequivocal and saying ANC must continue leading them in this province. Yes, there are a few setbacks here and there.
Where exactly are you not happy?
In Gouga, the area of Gouga, Jeffreys Bay and Humansdorp. It's just a setback, but
where you lost to the DA?
Yes, we've won the other part of it that used to belong to DA to balance that. Now the issue is still around Nelson Mandela, but we're comfortable with what we have seen already, getting more than 36 wards from 34 that we had in 2011. We think that with all the votes having been calculated and loaded in the system, we should be able to get the majority we wanted to continue running that municipality.
Are you still confident as the ANC that you have not lost the Nelson Mandela Metro?
Yes, obviously, yes, but we are also picking up this the propaganda that is being also peddled around by the opposition, particularly DA. I think it's just a mischief just to create that element of uneasiness in our people. I think we must relax up until the IEC concludes the process. So far, with what we have seen, we are quite comfortable, and we think that we are going to get that part.
DA leader Musi Maimane has expressed satisfaction with the performance of the party in the local government elections. The party increased its grip of the Western Cape province while gaining ground in other provinces.
It's been a great opportunity for South Africans to express their democratic right. Many South Africans came out in these elections and we believe voted for change. We've shown some incredible growth in these elections and we're quite excited about that. We also see that, in fact, in the metros that we targeted, metros that we wanted to grow in, we've shown the fact that when I think about Tshwane, we've shown some excellent results in communities like Mamelodi in preliminary results. We've seen that we've grabbed some wards in certain places. We've shown that in Joburg we've seen some very good growth. In Nelson Mandela Bay we're still feeling quite buoyed and confident about that particular metro. But I also want to celebrate the fact that Patricia de Lille, certainly in the city of Cape Town, we've increased our majority there, showing that where we govern, people actually recognize that the DA gives the best offer for basic services, the ability for us to govern in a place where we create work for South Africans, and ultimately we don't have a track record of corruption. So this election at this preliminary stage, well, obviously I'll be waiting for the results to come out tomorrow in their final numbers, but we're feeling quite excited about our prospect. We feel that this has been a very important election, it's been a historic election, and it shows that ultimately when you put the offer before the people of South Africa about jobs, about the delivery of basic services and about ending corruption, that people will come out to vote. So preliminarily we're feeling quite excited and very positive and buoyed by the results.
Musa, just a quick one. One of these reasons for these elections has also been a test for Musimamani, whether he will be able to pull in the black votes for the DA. Do you think that the DA has done well so far?
Yeah, so far I'm quite excited about it. I mean, even I look at the fact that what's happened in Cape Town at this point in time, we've shown some great growth. If you come with me to Nelson Mandela Bay, we're winning in communities that previously we didn't have support in. As I've highlighted even here in Tshwane, in Joburg. So for me, I think yes, like any other leader, the scoreboard there is a big reflection on any leader. It doesn't matter which party you lead. At the end of the day, South Africans will assess, or at least your own party looks at how well you've done on the scoreboard in any party that you stand for. But I think what's also important for me to highlight is the democratic project of South Africa. Whether you take Musimamani out of it or not, the facts are on the table. Do South Africans still feel that it's best for them to change government through the ballot box when they want to? And I think for me, that is a project we should never lose track of, because it's the most safeguarding of any democratic space, that the ballot box is always more important than the bullet or any other form of democratic change.
IFP has managed to retain President Jacob Zuma's hometown Nkandla with a bigger victory than in 2011. The party of Mangosuthu Buthelezi won the municipality with 56% of the vote against the ANC's 42%. The IFP pulled 15,488 votes from Nkandla's 14 wards and the ANC 11,561 votes. In 2011, the IFP won Nkandla with 46% against the ANC's 42%.
Vuwani shutdown is over for now. The town has been in the grip of violent protests for more than 3 months. Residents were protesting against the decision to incorporate them with Malamulele. 90% of registered voters here boycotted yesterday's poll.
Calm after a month of deadly protests. Schools have reopened and teaching is scheduled in a short while.
So we are making those preparations. We're waiting for furniture to be delivered as we speak. Our trucks are on the road. We've done a full assessment. We also see that we need some additional furniture. We need stationery. We need all sorts of things. And those things are on their way, because we had been working quietly preparing for these things after we conducted an assessment of the needs. So we believe that by Wednesday next week, we should be going 100%.
For about 4 months, trading ground to a halt, and the local economy was in doldrums.
Yes, we suffered every month. We've got expenses around 60,000 rands, so we're giving money from our pocket. So we're suffering a lot. I hope things goes well now.
It's very bad, you know. In business, even if you close for a day, it's bad. Say for 3 months. It can take us by 6 months to recover what we have lost.
The ANC has scored more votes in Vuwani and surrounding areas after the poll. 24 hours after the elections, Vuwani is back to normal. Business is booming again. This complex was shut down for 3 months following the protest against the Municipal Demarcation Board's decision to incorporate this place with Malamulele to form a new municipality. An agreement between the chiefs and the Department of Coctam was signed to pave way for peace in this area. It's Mike Maringa, SABC News, Vuwani.
Sentencing procedures in the case of the woman convicted of kidnapping Zephany Nurse 19 years ago have been concluded in the Western Cape High Court. The 52-year-old Lavender Hill woman was convicted earlier this year on charges of kidnapping, fraud and contravening the Children's Act. The state's last witness was investigating an officer who arrested her. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Buckenhazen told the court that in 1997, the year the 3-day-old Zephany was kidnapped, 155 children were reported missing. Only 7 have not been found. The case has been postponed to next week. On Tuesday, 19-year-old Zephany testified in camera. Well, that's it for now, and we are live now to the IEC Centre in Pretoria.
Yes, of course, and that's where results from the municipal elections are coming in fast and furiously. We'll see you back at the top of the hour.
Wow, that view from the IEC here in Pretoria, it has really become very busy. Good afternoon and a warm welcome from me, Sam Marshall. We broadcast live from the IEC Results Centre in Pretoria, and we will be with you for the next 3 hours.
A very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us as we continue unpacking the results as they keep streaming in. I am Alicia Jali. Now, all related news can be found on elections at sabc.co.za, and of course our hashtag, we're very trendy, is SABC elections. But first, let's take a quick look at our analysts this afternoon.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to both of you. Professor Nkandla as well as Professor Nkandla. It's so great to have you with us on such a big day. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes, it is a big day indeed, yeah. Countdown time.
Let's look at some of those results. The only other one that's 100% complete is the Northern Cape at 100%. And maybe let's start with you, Prof, the one closest to me. The ANC has now lost 4.86% of its 2011 vote in the Northern Cape. The DA has increased by 2.86. These are some interesting figures, and we've been talking a lot about playing out different scenarios as the results are coming in.
Well, that drop is not surprising because nationally you now have 71% of the vote declared, and the ANC is at 52-53%. Historically, at that level, the ANC would be somewhere in the mid-60s, and if it drops down gradually. So this is a sign of what is happening. Something not surprising. This is a pattern. The ANC has been losing support in the last 3 elections, dropping by an average of 3 to 4%. This is a continuation of that, and given what has been happening in the last few months or so, this should not come as a surprise. It's exactly what is deserved given what has been happening.
You know, speaking of surprises, Professor Nkandla, I mean, I think we saw the Premier there on the interviews. He was very confident about the fact that the ANC is going to retain the Northwest. But are you really surprised by this final result here?
Well, Alicia, I can say for now, if we look at the global picture, our impressions and analysis can only be tentative because the global picture is not finalized as yet. But from what we have seen, I want to really concur with my colleague, Professor Nkandla. We're seeing a downward trend in ANC support. I would say ever since the elections of 2004. From 2009, we started to see this marked downward trend. And let's see when all the results are out, where it's going to put the ANC eventually.
But gentlemen, I just want to ask very quickly, Sam. It seems that the support from rural to urban areas actually differs. What do you attribute that to, professors?
Well, in the rural areas, people are dependent entirely on the state, on government grants, food parcels, child grants, old age grants. So people's livelihood is literally maintained by the state. And so there's a level of indebtedness to the state, whereas in the city centers, people have towers, people have electricity, this and that. So they are looking for other things. They are looking at leadership. They are looking at jobs. They are not happy with corruption, right? So you really have to court them. So they are fluid. Whereas in the rural areas, they are dependent to the state, and they worry if you say, should you not vote the ANC, will not give you grants. So they're a lot more malleable there than they are in the urban centers.
Prof, let me bring you into this, and I just want to read out that seat allocation for you very quickly. ANC 186, DA 65, EFF 16, COPE 5. Any surprises there in terms of that results? I mean, I did have a chat to Mbuyiseni Ndlozi yesterday, and he was talking about us moving away from not only an opposition party, but moving into governance now. So we're really going to have to see whether the EFF, if it's just big talk, or whether it can actual fact be part of the managing process.
Yes, the EFF is a new kid on the block. And I don't think that's my subjective view. I don't think they're actually doing badly, but it means there's still a lot of work they need to do in communities, on the ground. And let's see whether with the little support they're going to get, how much are they going to do? Are they going to garner more support, let's say, in the next local government elections? But I don't think they're performing badly at all.
Let's have a look at the national graph there. As we can see there, the ANC is currently sitting on 53.86%, and of course the DA coming in second with 26.95%, and the EFF they're still in the red, and of course they're sitting at 7.55%. What do you think we can expect as we head down to the final countdown towards Saturday, professors?
Well, the ANC might pick up perhaps by 1 or 2. One is not certain. Historically, we would say the townships have not come in, and those votes would normally go to the ANC. But today, the ANC shares those votes with EFF. So those votes might not necessarily swing in favor of the ANC. For the EFF as well, especially where they are kingmakers, that's going to be a very tricky question for them, especially where they are sandwiched, for instance, between the ANC and the DA. Who of these two parties do they support? The DA? Yes, the ANC, there's some discomfort there. They don't get along. Do they go with them? Because they want to distinguish themselves from the ANC, right? Then on the other hand, you have the DA, which is a pro-market party. So for them, it's going to be a very tough decision because they are meant to be different from these other two parties. But then how can they be different if they go to bed with them? That's a tough question for them.
Look, a lot of people have talked about just how difficult the run-up to this elections have been and just how many different issues people have had to tackle, that it was a local election with big themes and big ideas that was almost national in nature. Are we going to see maybe a miscommunication in some of those targeted areas that the ANC might have missed? Like just communication that hasn't gone the way it should have gone?
Well, I think the main issue is which sphere of government is actually responsible for some of the promises that have appeared in the manifesto and have been communicated during the elections. Because sometimes you find that the lines are quite blurry between the various spheres of government. For instance, when it comes to issues of housing, when it comes to land reform, you see. So it's going to be very interesting to see how, after the elections, once a party has won and shows public participation in policy decision-making, to make things clear to communities.
You know, gentlemen, I'm just wondering, we all know that, of course, the NFP was disqualified from these elections, and we're just talking about it before we went on air. Where did the NFP vote then go to? And a lot of people are saying the IFP, but how, professors?
Well, look at the IFP numbers. I think the IFP has been a major beneficiary.
The comeback kid.
The comeback kid, I'm afraid Chief Mutelezi, perhaps he was thinking of retiring, now he's back in the game. He's not going anywhere.
He's going strong.
Well, he can claim that victory as he is, you know. So NFP, I'm afraid this is possibly the beginning of the end. Because if you are now dismantling the party, you cannot come back 2 years down the line in 2019 and say, well, I've come back, please come back to the party. This is the beginning of the end, caused primarily by the illness of the party leader, which was a bit unfortunate, but in any party, if you don't have central authority, then everyone else is left fighting amongst themselves. And now people are thinking about their jobs. They have school fees to pay, bonds to pay. So, you know, they're trying to secure jobs somewhere, and for them is to pledge support for the ANC in the hope that they will get something in return.
Prof, I wanted to ask you to follow up on that, but we've run out of time. Maybe we can touch on it a little bit later. But just very, very quickly, Nelson Mandela Bay is the interesting one as well. It's hotly contested. We're looking at results coming in now at 47.55. That's 130,521 votes to the DA, and 38.23. That's 104,957 votes to the ANC. It's hotly contested. It's been talked about a lot, but it's not going the way that some people claimed it would go.
Yeah, well in Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Municipality, I think for the ANC there's a lot of own goals there, the way they've run that particular metro. Chopping and changing mayors now and then, poor service delivery, and a lot of people actually sitting unemployed, sitting at home. If you go to New Brighton, to Zwide in the townships, people are frustrated, unemployed, and they really want a government which walks the talk, basically.
All right, and on that note, I mean, it's 79% of votes completed there. The DA currently leading the Metro with 50%, and the ANC currently has 39%, with the EFF's 5%. Let's now go to the real exciting stuff, and of course, the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. But our reporter is standing there, Tammy Dixon, who's in the Eastern Cape IEC Results Centre. Tammy, a very good afternoon to you. What do you have for us at this hour?
Well, thank you very much and welcome, guys, here in the Eastern Cape. We're coming to you live from the Provincial IEC Results Centre, which is in East London, in the Buffalo City Metropolitan. Now, there's you know, a lot of excitement for others here. There's like worries for others as the results are being counted. You know what I mean? We're seeing different faces here of leaders of political parties, which we have to speak to them and get a sense of how they feel about these results as they're coming through. But what we're hearing on the floor here is that there's about 65% of the votes that have been counted already now here in the province, and there's talk that this could be wrapped up maybe in the next 2 to 3 hours, and then what will be left thereafter would be the auditing of those results, and then they will be now pushed through the system so that all of us could see them. So they are doing their best really to wrap up the counting of the votes. But now let's talk to the political parties in the province that have been vying for the 3.3 million voters that have registered. We'll start on my left here with Dinga Peter. He represents the Economic Freedom Fighters, the new kids on the block. They've just entering this race for the first time, and they seem to have done well. It's like they've got now about 4.9% of the votes in the entire province, and that translates to about 9 seats in several municipalities in the province. I'm not sure how you feel about this. Is this what you have expected that you will achieve at this point?
Well, it's mixed feelings. We expected to do a little bit better, but we cannot complain at all. We cannot complain at all. I think we have done very well, judging by the number of votes that we got. 2014, which was almost 3%. Now we are standing at 4.9, and we believe that we will double, maybe even close to triple the number of people votes that we've got. So at the present moment we are happy with the results. We cannot complain.
Where have been your strongholds?
Well, at the present moment, it has been on the side of Transkei, on the side of as well Kakadu, where there is in one municipality we've got a seat in Kakadu, that is Sandys River. So it has been almost all over the show, but not necessarily in one place. But we are still hoping for better results as the day proceed.
Are there plans for coalition with other political parties in the province?
Well, it's a decision that we'll have to go back to the drawing board and discuss with the leadership as a whole at the national level. So it's something that we cannot really comment on it at the present moment.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
That's the EFF. Very impressed with its own performance. 4.9 in the Eastern Cape at the present moment. They've got 9 seats in various municipalities in the province. It's not a bad start, they say. But on my left here, I've got Bishop Lieve Sharpley from Cope. Well, I don't know, Bishop. It doesn't look good, Bishop. It doesn't look good. What happened?
Well, I think everyone knows the background of COPE, where we come from. We had the bruising conflict within the organization. And then also when this new online registering of candidates came on, a lot of our rural people didn't come on, and they couldn't get onto the IEC because some of the documents were not given. And that, to a certain extent, really did dent us. And we do concede that we haven't done very well. But having said that, we believe that we will now prepare ourselves for the coming 2019 elections. But one thing that has come out of this specific election, that has come out very clear, is that the political landscape is going to change. because the voter turnout was so great, the registration of voters, which means they are interested. So anyone who wins these elections and takes control, if they don't deliver, the voter will now really kick the people out. So I believe it has achieved something, even if we would not do as good as we thought we would.
Yeah, but Bishop, what makes you so confident that you could do better than this? I mean, it's worse even now. I mean, you're not featuring anywhere on the board on the results, and it's really bad. I mean, I'm not quite sure where do you get this confidence that you could actually still do better.
Well, we've got 6 seats already in the nationally that have come through, and we believe definitely that we can do better, because what has happened, all those who were in the organization who had brought it into disrepute have now began to move out, and we believe we'd start all over to make sure that we become a credible organization, reliable. And I must point out that we battled to root out all corruption and fraudsters within the organization itself. And it was at that point, and we believe it is not important to fall. It is important how many times you rise when you fall.
Thank you very much, Bishop.
You're welcome, sir.
Well, that's Bishop Lieve Sharpley, still very confident that they can still do well still, even after this rather very dismal performance by COPE in these elections. Now, let's turn our attention to Port Elizabeth in the Nelson Mandela Metro, where our reporter, Iviwe Poti, is standing by. Iviwe, how's the tension there?
Tammy, tensions are high in this room where we are right now. The different political parties, just to mention, the ANC, EFF as well as DA, are also, on their sides trying to just, let me move out of the shot and let Richard show you exactly what's going on. They are, trying to double check as well as estimate those numbers that will now trickle in. Last we spoke about 30 minutes ago to the IEC official here. He told us the votes were at about 87% counted. So it's just a few more, Tammy, that will trickle in to make the difference, and exactly, who is actually to win the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. But as I said to you right now, the tensions are a bit high. More and more political party candidates, people are coming through to come and see and help those that are here. They have calculators at hand counting those numbers. But that's what I can tell you for now, that it is a bit tense. It's getting closer to the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much, Iviwe. That's the situation at the Nelson Mandela Metro. The counting of votes continues there. We don't know who is going to take it, but because both political parties, especially those who are in contention there, the ANC as well as the Democratic Alliance, they both claim that they're going to win this municipality. So it's going to be interesting how it ends. But with me now, I'm joined by the Chief Electoral Officer here in the province, Utatu Thamsanqa Mkhaji, is going to just give us a bit of an update as to where things stand right now, Tatu Mkhaji.
Well, at the moment, the results captured at our results capturing centers, we've captured 98.8% of the results, and we have audited over 96% and scanned over 96%. The complete results at the moment are just over 92%. So we think that we will complete still some time this afternoon, because unfortunately there are exceptions which must be dealt with, and then if we can handle those exceptions, then we should complete sooner. Yeah.
And then what will happen after that, once you complete the actual counting, and then what's going to be the next step?
Well, once we complete the actual capturing process, audited results and everything's complete, then we'll be able to know what are the provisional results for the province. But the final results will obviously be announced and declared by the commission itself. But we'll be able to tell you what are the provisional results for all municipalities in the Eastern Cape.
That could be today still?
It could be today still, yes.
All right, Tatu Mkhaji, nkosi kakhulu. Siyabulela ngalo nkcazelo usinika yona, the update that we're getting from the Chief Electoral Officer in the province, Tatu Thami Mkhaji. It's quite interesting what is happening when we now check the results board here in terms of the counting that is happening, as I'm being joined now by our resident analyst to talk about what has come through. Jolene, which areas have you picked up in terms of the results that have come through?
Well, I think we are seeing 8 councils. The DA thus far have 1 council. If we start looking at maybe some of the metro areas like Buffalo City, for example, Buffalo City not complete yet, but at my last check, I think last time it was at about 68% complete. And again, we are starting to see with Buffalo City ANC at 56.61 currently, DA at 27.91. So this potentially again could indicate that there might be a slight dip, but of course we will have to wait and see again until the fat lady have sung.
Right.
So
now, the interesting thing about Buffalo City is that I think we need to remind people about this. This is the second metropolitan municipality in the province, and many people think that there's only one, it's Nelson Mandela Metro. No, there's 2 metropolitan municipalities in the Eastern Cape, and where we are, this is the second one, and it does seem that the ANC is not under threat at all in this province. I mean, 89% of the votes that have been counted already, I mean, it's sitting at 56%, so it looks like it's doing okay here.
Yeah, no, I think, the attention was very much on Nelson Mandela Bay. I think that potentially had we seen an aggressive campaign like we saw within Nelson Mandela Bay in Buffalo City, we don't know, but we will have to wait for future local government elections to see.
I see. It's interesting to see that also the EFF, I mean, you can look at this, you've got now the ANC, the DA, and you've got the EFF that have just bulldozed all the other political parties that have been here in the Eastern Cape to get into position 3 at 7.4%.
Yes, no, the EFF thus far with the 89% complete sitting at your 7.4%. The UDM was roughly at around 1.1% at my last check as well, which is actually a slight increase from where it was in 2011 at 0.74.
I see. Any other interesting developments that we have seen?
Well, of course, everybody is waiting, with bated breath for Nelson Mandela Bay. And of course, an area as well would be Ward 43.
Yes.
And we know that in Ward 43, the ANC did not register a contender, predominantly because of an administrative blunder, it would seem, on their part. And Ward 43 would have been particularly valuable for the ANC, considering that in 2011 they got around 73% of the vote in that area.
It's quite interesting that we mentioned Ward 43 in Newding, and people need to know this, that the Nelson Mandela Metro has got a total of 60 wards, and the ANC did not contest all of them. In fact, there's only one ward that it did not contest, and that's Ward 43. So people must keep that in mind, that the ANC actually contested 59 wards in the Eastern Cape, and that ward, as far as I understand, has been taken by the EFF.
No, I don't think it's fair to say that it has been taken by the EFF.
The vote is still coming in.
The vote is still coming in, but within one voting district, the EFF seems to be at around a 44% mark, but that's with one voting district in that we saw. In the same breath as well, as we are still waiting for other areas to come in, and if I just compare the map of 2011 to the map we see here, we are, for example, waiting for a DA-controlled area in 2011, waiting for that area to come in, waiting for a few ANC-controlled areas in 2011 to come in as well, and a little bit of a ANC-DA mix on this side here that we are waiting for as well.
Yeah. Now, the other interesting development in the Nelson Mandela Metro is the Ward 30, the famous Ward 30 that was won by the UDM. Remember, during the by-elections before the campaign, and the UDM won that Ward 30 there. Do you know where we stand with that ward now?
The Veerplaas Community Hall, I believe, has been counted. I'm not sure whether it's been verified yet, but the UDM was sitting at around 24% there. But again, it's a wait and see up until all the voting districts are done before one can make a final call.
Thanks very much, Jolene. All right. Well, that's a quick update that we can give you from the Eastern Cape. We'll continue watching the progress of the counting, and then we'll continue updating you on those results. But for now, it's back to our colleagues in Pretoria.
Tommy Dixon live to us from the IEC Results Centre out in East London. And as we saw there from Vuwani in the hotly contested Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, apparently the tensions are high there. The party representatives are all standing around those ballot boxes, making sure that the relevant vote goes to the people that voted for them. And of course, we can tell you now that the votes are sitting, the DA is at 47.3% and 38.4% that is belonging to the ANC.
I want to throw this question very quickly at the professors, because you've been watching this and you're quite animated having a discussion between the both of you. Professor Nyana, let me come to you. Just a reaction to the stuff that you've seen coming out of that part of the country. You've heard the tough questions that Tommy Dixon has asked Cope, mixed feelings from the EFF, but it is a big surprise in terms of how the Nelson Mandela Bay has reacted.
The shocker for me is the ANC there. That's a historical stronghold of the ANC. Gwavon Beki, Raymond Mhlaba, Voisile Mini, all the stalwarts of the movement are buried there. I'm surprised completely, because I had given the ANC at least about 50 to 51, because I thought Danny Jordan had done quite well, had changed perceptions, and perhaps the DA was not as strong as it was in 2011. There were some divisions within the party, but it doesn't look like perhaps the change came in too late. And I'm afraid it's shocked a whole lot of people. Who knows, Governor Beki and Omre might be turning in their grave now as we speak.
All right, we're going to leave it there for the studio discussion and quickly hand over to the action floor, as we call it, where Aldrin Sampear, reporter, is standing by with the debate between the ANC and DA. Aldrin, good afternoon. Take it away.
Well, good afternoon, and just a quick glance at the scoreboard as it stands at the moment. 74% of the votes have been calculated so far, and if you look at the scoreboard currently, the ANC is leading with 75%, with 75 councils. The DA in second place with 16 councils, followed by the IFP and ECOS are also there. They've also managed to get one of the councils, and right now I'm joined by the ANC and the DA, and we're discussing the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. It's been a hotly contested metro since the 2014 results came in, the elections in 2014 came in, and since then opposition parties have been gunning for that municipality. We've seen the ANC as well on its door-to-door campaigns. It's been on the campaign trail in Nelson Mandela Bay, but it seems as though that the results aren't paying off at this point. Minister Jeff Radebe.
Well, it's still too early to call. As you can see, not all the votes have been counted in Nelson Mandela Bay, but the good news is that we have won 5 wards, 3 from the DA, 1 from UDM and 1 from the independent, which indicate the trend that we have. I also understand as well that in terms of the wards, the ANC has more wards than other political parties. So I think let's wait until everything has been counted. I'm sure the ANC have been running a very positive campaign. We ought to have a positive outcome of the results in Nelson Mandela Bay.
The issue normally with wards is that wards don't translate into PR results, and that's really what you need to gain a municipality.
Well, as I've said, not all the votes have been counted. We're still waiting for Uitenhage and other areas. So by the end of the day or sometime tomorrow, I think the picture will change positively for the ANC.
Has the ANC sat down with its election machinery, probably in a war room, with regards to Nelson Mandela Bay, because it has been an issue, including the city of Tshwane, whether the ANC would like to go into majority with any other political party?
Well, I think that point does not arise at this moment in time, because issues like that arise out of the outcome of any electoral results. For now, we are steaming ahead to win all the metros in the Republic of South Africa, including Nelson Mandela Bay.
Well, let's just quickly bring in the DA's James Self, who's standing right next to me as well. James, as it currently stands with the results that we have in now, the DA is currently leading with about 50%. The ANC still remains confident that it will retain that municipality.
Our projections show that we will be the leading party in that municipality. We intend to take over that municipality. It's been shockingly run. It has the largest number of bucket toilets of any major urban centre in South Africa. It has the highest wasteful expenditure of any municipality. And it has the biggest housing backlog. There's lots of work to do. We are determined to fix up that municipality. We've got the people, we've got the plans, and we want to take that municipality over.
Well, as we just heard there from Jeff Radebe, ANC members saying that they are still confident that all the votes have not been calculated, and at the end of the day, come tomorrow, they will have all those votes.
Yeah, well, we've got a very sophisticated model that projects votes for us. We believe that we will emerge as the leading party in that. We might not get an overall majority in that municipality, but we are determined to govern it and to bring the DA's hope of change that creates jobs and cuts corruption.
And you just spoke now that there's a possibility that you might not get an overwhelming majority. Does this mean that the DA will be looking into a coalition? And is there a possible coalition partner that you're currently considering that the EFF is trailing just behind you guys?
Well, one doesn't talk coalitions until the figures are up. But if the figures show that a coalition is necessary, we then sit down and we work out with whom to form a coalition, what are the terms of the coalition, and whether that coalition is acceptable.
What are some of those terms?
Well, we would want honest government, we would want clean government, we would want government that was that rooted out corruption, we would want a government that created jobs. And if we could find in a coalition partner a party that agreed in the same things, then we would consider going into coalition with that party or parties.
Okay, well, let's quickly bring in the EFF's Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu. Are you guys at all excited? Firstly, it seems that the EFF has increased its numbers nationally, but particularly looking at what's happening currently at the Nelson Mandela Bay, do you think the EFF has dropped the ball probably there?
No, look, we've not dropped the ball anyway as the EFF. We came into the 2016 local government elections fully aware that these are make or break elections, and we think that with the numbers that we've got thus far, as the EFF were making progress. We're growing as an organization. Majority of political parties that got to exist in South Africa post-1994, they stumble when it goes to local government elections. The EFF has shown its strength, its staying power, and the good thing about that is that our votes are now evenly spread across all provinces. We have got wards that we have won in Mtuba, in Jozini, in Nongoma, in Abaqulusi. We have got representatives in all corners of South Africa, and which is great. And there are municipalities which are going to need the voice of the EFF to be decided when they have to constitute the executive councils of municipalities. So I've grown stronger as an organization, and we really thank the people of South Africa for voting for the EFF in their numbers. And we know that we couldn't reach out to as many voters as possible, but we are satisfied with the numbers that we have received thus far. We will not disappoint, because every time we're given a mandate as the EFF, we make sure that it becomes a decisive mandate and we utilize it to the maximal benefit of the people of South Africa. So those who have voted for the EFF in their municipalities, they must be rest assured that the EFF is going to represent them properly, is going to make sure that the basic things that they've been fighting for, water, electricity, sanitation, are going to be fought for by councillors of the EFF, even when they're on the opposition benches. They're going to fight against all forms of corruption in all the councils. So the EFF is in a better space because we are a relatively new organization. We've just turned 3 now, and already to be competing at this space as one of the top 3 decisive political parties, it's quite an achievement.
Is that an excuse, though? You keep on saying that the EFF has just turned 3 during your election manifesto launch. You made sure that you put the message across that the EFF will be taking on some of these municipalities. 75% of the votes have been tallied across the country, and currently the EFF sits at 0 councils.
No, look, yeah, we have not won any municipalities. We had wished that we would win certain municipalities, but we have not won it.
Are you disappointed?
We are not disappointed at all. We are not at all disappointed. We welcome what the people of South Africa have said we should work with. When we contested the elections in 2014, we wanted to win national government, and we did not win. We got 6.35%, and still we utilized that 6% to represent the people of South Africa and our voters far much more effectively. And that is exactly what we're going to do, the mandate that the people have given us. We will never look down on the vote that we get from our people. We will never look down on the mandate which our people give us. We couldn't reach out to as many people as possible because obviously we did not have a billion-rand budget. But those who could reach up to, they were able to vote for the EFF, and we're happy. That is why we're grateful for their support and their votes.
So does this at all show that the country, the majority of the country's nationals haven't expressed their confidence in the EFF? The EFF has shown us stadiums that are filled to capacity, some even overflowing, but that hasn't resulted in the numbers at the ballot box.
I think that the outcomes of elections are reflective of so many aspects than generally what is the general feeling of the people. Well, we accept it as that for political processes to go ahead. Sometimes electoral outcomes can be an outcome of how much money you have as a political party, how much money you have to buy people, how much patronage you possess, how much fear you instill in old grannies' hearts that if you are not voted into power, they're going to lose their pension funds and all those other things there. So there's lots of things which elections are reflective of. And we exist in such an environment, fully aware that there are lots of dynamics that are at play. But even under such difficult conditions, the EFF is growing. A bigger number of people than they were in 2014 are showing confidence in the EFF, and we're proud of that. We're going to show respect to that, and we're going to grow even further. And at the ultimate end, when majority of the people have been reached by the EFF, have been spoken to by the EFF, we are going to be government of South Africa and will provide direction on the struggle for economic freedom and how our people get to benefit out of the land, out of the mines, out of the natural resources that exist in our country.
Well, Economic Freedom Fighters Deputy President there, Floyd Chivambu, speaking about the results after trickled in. Remember that the EFF also went into these elections saying that they will be winning some of those municipalities, and as it currently stands, that is not the situation. Well, Alicia, it's back to you in studio.
Thank you so much to Alderin Sampier there on the action floor. Sam, I think the very interesting thing to hear there, very different views according to what the party representatives are saying. But let's find out from our analyst, Professor Nkandla. I mean, what do you think in terms of course, Mr. James Self says they wanted the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro Municipality and they want to govern due to the shocking conditions that people still live under there. And of course, by the look of things in terms of voting as it stands right now, it looks like the DA has got it.
Yes, but let's wait for the final picture to eventually emerge once all the counting has been done.
That's what Jeff Radebe was saying, yes.
But it's been my argument throughout that the ANC, I don't see it winning Nelson Mandela Metro.
Can I bring you in here, Professor? Sure. Because for me, it's an interesting scenario, and I love what Tommy Dixon was saying. In actual fact, there are two metros in the Eastern Cape. Yeah. It's Nelson Mandela and Buffalo City. Yeah. But if, and this is the scenario, if the DA walks away with Nelson Mandela Bay, we know that the next focus, and I think Self said it himself, the next focus will be Buffalo City. Absolutely. It has to be.
Well, if Buffalo City doesn't change, then they are next, because Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela Bay have the same set of problems. You have the same kind of party instability, corruption, poor delivery. So if they don't take this as a sign that they are in trouble, then they are going to follow suit. But I mean, we've seen this kind of signs have been sent to the ANC for the last 10 years. They don't change, right? So hopefully this might be as strong a sign for them to change. Who knows? It might be good for the ANC in that way, for them to show that it's a party in crisis. Everyone is saying that except themselves, right? So common sense says if we're in crisis, change. But ANC operates on a different logic, but hopefully now they'll regain some sense.
You know what I found also very interesting there, Sam, as well as my panelists here, was the fact that the DA's himself seems to be open to discussions of a coalition around the Buffalo City Metro specifically. Talk to us about that there, Professor.
Well, I'm not sure who eventually they'll go into a coalition with.
And he did not mention, that's the thing.
And of course the stability of that coalition. You see? Yeah, because coalitions, you know, can promise at the beginning and then in the end and just get very unstable. So let's wait and see. It would be interesting to see who they pick.
I think the other interesting thing that comes across for me is that there is, with so much of the vote already counted, there is, as you also mentioned, let's maybe wait till the end of that vote. But is the picture pretty clear? Even though we're publicly optimistic, is there maybe a sense already of where it's going? I know we're waiting for the final, but we know what's happening, right?
Well, party agents, ANC party agents have been saying the ANC won 37 of the 60 wards. But those, of course, haven't been confirmed, and we'll see if they make any difference. But they don't seem, they're quite tense. They seem to be looking for votes even under the table if there are any left. But let's see. Perhaps there's some merit to waiting and seeing. Assuming that those numbers, 37 out of 60 wards, are true, and then what is the proportional turnout? Perhaps it might drop to the DA 47, the ANC 42. That's another prediction from CSIR. But still, I mean, based on these numbers, it's quite possible that the DA might be the largest party. And as I said earlier, I'm one of those who are hugely surprised because I thought the ANC had a big chance there.
All right, that's where we're going to leave it on the studio discussion as things hit up, as the votes keep trickling in. We will be keeping you informed. Let's now cross over to Johannesburg and see what Simphiwe Nkandla has at the IEC Centre here in Johannesburg.
Yes? Hello? Yeah? Well, a very warm welcome to the Gauteng IEC Rock, coming to you live from Auckland Park. Thank you so much for tuning into SABC. Well, very interesting developments coming from the townships in Tshwane that were rocked by violence in the run-up to yesterday's polls. We see the ANC in having clinched 8 wards in Atteridgeville, and Hammanskraal went straight to the arms of the ANC within 9 wards. And, of course, the party also bagged all 17 wards in Soshanguve. Now, taking a look at the party's performance in the metros, we see the DA leading at the moment with only 44%, and the ANC following closely at 41%, and at Ekurhuleni the ANC is sitting at 43%, and coming hot on the heels of the party is the DA at 41%, and in Johannesburg the ANC is sitting at 40% and the DA at 44%. And the SABC was also in Kliptown, and our reporter Diabo Sitwe compiled this report for us.
I come to you from Soweto in Ward 17, the home of the Freedom Charter. This is called the Walter Sisulu Square, or the Kliptown Square as it's formerly known, a home that is probably synonymous with the ANC history. And with me I have 3 candidates, one from the DA, one from the Economic Freedom Fighters, and a community leader that does not belong to any political party. This has been a ward that has been governed by the DA largely, and also in coalition with the ANC in other parts, but it seems like the people that I'm with, I really don't know at this point what the results are with regards to how the voting went yesterday. But Sophie is with the DA, and she'll tell me how she feels and if she's optimistic that the DA will return this ward. Sophie, thank you very much for your time. How do you feel post yesterday, the voting, and are you confident that you will retain this ward? DA seems to be doing well in many of the wards.
Yes, I'm confident, very confident with the DA. As I spoke to the community at large, even now, they say they voted for the DA because they do want change. We need a change in a very serious manner as to pertaining houses in sanitary, libraries, community centers and everything that they do. And as the community member, the DA promised that within the 5 years, if they haven't done something, we are free as a community to vote the DA off. We don't have to give them second chances to go to a next term and a next term. So everybody has voted mostly for the DA, and we hope that it will succeed like that.
Since it's been the DA that actually has been governing this particular area, and you speak of housing, are you trying to tell me that they did not do well in the previous time?
Some people did get some little bit houses, but as we know, that the DA are not the people who is in charge of the funding. They also have to get the funding from the ruling party. So as we understand from the meetings, that even if they submit the paperwork, nothing happens to our funding and things. So as most of the people in Kliptown are still staying in the old dilapidated houses, it's falling apart, it's breaking, there's no proper toilets, there's nothing basically. So the DA is trying to say, okay, give us a chance in order to bring that change. Give us the funding that we do. So in the 5 years that we haven't done anything, don't re-elect us. So that is what I have as a DA member and as a community member of Kliptown. Very excited and hope the DA succeeds.
Let's hope so indeed. The next person is Gracious. He does not belong to any political party, but he stands for the community. Let's find out what his views are. Gracious, thank you very much for your time. You are not with any particular political party. What is your view with regards to who gets to govern this particular area or ward?
Thank you, Diabo. One of the things that we've been looking at is that we have been giving power to these powerhouses, mainly and namely the ANC and the DA. So what they have done in the past, they've done absolutely nothing. As my colleague was saying, that their houses are collapsing, people are still living in shacks, electricity instead is going higher, and we're keeping on voting. The only time these politicians or the leaders of the people come is when they are saying, please vote for us, and then after they go and celebrate, instead of after winning the elections, realize that it's actually the beginning of the work. Then that's when they should start taking up the initiative of the delivery service. The delivery service is simple. It's sanitation and then job creation and housing. That's actually the service delivery that we're looking for.
Thank you very much, Gracious. And up next is a lady that is with the EFF. We know that the EFF has shown a remarkable showing in these particular elections. And I was quite impressed actually with what the lady told me about her decision once, first of all, to join the EFF, which I think she should share with you. Can you tell me what or informed your decision to finally join the EFF? And what are you hoping to gain? How do you feel also about their performance in these municipal elections?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. The mainly one reason why I joined the EFF, I'm an undergraduate from the Vaal University of Technology. Since we voted for the EFF there, we have seen the changes. They deliver everything they promised. So I thought it is time that we give it that chance. As we all know that the EFF is still new. It's a new party. We've been running for about 3 years now. So since that 3 years, we've been tackling the youth mostly and the universities. As you have seen, I can name a few: the University of Limpopo, the Vaal University, the University of Venda. We can see changes there in the new universities. So what I'm asking for is for people to give us a chance in the communities as a large, the local, the metros. I believe in the EFF that we can bring that change that people are looking for. As Mr. Gracious has said, that all the parties, they promise to deliver a certain thing, but once they get the chance to deliver, they disappear. So with my experience from the EFF, I think we will deliver as we promise.
Thank you very much. Well, you've heard it from the three candidates, the DA, a leader from the community, and one from the EFF. I really, really wish we could have had the views from the ANC. Unfortunately, their members could not be with us at this time. However, there's no stronger view or stronger voice than the voice of the people who have made their marks as of yesterday, and as they await their election results. It will be interesting to see where this ward goes. We've already heard from Ms. Official telling us that the DA was here or is here currently, and that there have been a lot of failings with regards to housing and so forth. And the one main threat that comes from all three of them is that what they do want to see is that the person who, or the party that comes here, is the one that has to deliver for the people.
Well, that was a reporter in Kliptown in Soweto, Diabo Setwe, helping us to sort of get a reaction regarding yesterday's polls and today's vote counting, and about the residents' expectations of the outcome of today's vote counting. And we have on the desk my colleague, Criselda Lewis, who is joined by political analyst Joe Mavuso, who will help us to dissect, to give the technical analysis of the votes and the numbers as they come through. Joe and Criselda, it looks like a tale of three metros and three political parties waiting with bated breath to see the fate regarding the three hotly contested metros in South Africa. That is Nelson Mandela Bay, I'm talking about Tshwane, and as well as Johannesburg, isn't it?
Well, certainly, Simpiwe, we will be dissecting all those results as they continue to trickle in. But very interestingly, where Diabo Sito is coming from at Ward 17 in Kliptown, we actually do have the results now of that particular Ward 17 in Kliptown. Let's just take a look at the board here at the moment. And all indications are at this point that Ward 17 in Kliptown, the Democratic Alliance is leading with 62%, well, 63% at this point, and the ANC is trailing behind there with 26% of the vote there, with 38% of the votes complete there, with the EFF on just about 5% of the vote there. So it certainly seems that a place of historical significance where the Freedom Charter was signed. We've got Freedom Square there as well, dedicated to the ANC struggle stalwart Walter Sisulu. And it certainly seems like the ANC has not been able to make inroads into Kliptown with all that rich historical significance there, Mr. Mavuso.
Quite a huge gap. And you're mentioning the significance establishment and also the Freedom Charter being adopted in Kliptown. It seems therefore that resonance did not live up to the struggle of the people. If you characterize Kliptown, it's in a squalor condition, a lot of informal settlement. It's bordering or along within one ward with the Eldorado Park, high unemployment rate, high substance abuse in that area. So the struggle continues for the people of Kliptown. Therefore, it looks like they've given the DA a vote, perhaps as an aspiration to please bring about change, especially job creation.
I think what's significant also about this is that we saw the ANC President Jacob Zuma in Kliptown just in June. He had done a door-to-door campaign in Kliptown and in Eldorado Park as well. So those door-to-door campaigns certainly didn't seem to yield any results. We know that in the run-up to this election as well, there'd been a number of service delivery protests in that particular area. Major concern there is electricity and housing as well.
That tells you that we cannot buy votes anymore in South Africa. People really remember who they are, what are their struggles, and they also know what they want. They want improvement. They want their lives to be better. And therefore, whoever can come in and promise them what, it looks like it was a little bit too late. But I'm saying whoever wins that what, now they should really go back to the basics and really work hard to elevate the poverty in that area so that people can feel that they are valued, they are important, and they're South Africans too.
All right, let's go back to my colleague there, Simpiwe Ngongwane, who is on the floor again, and he'll give us some more details about what's happening there.
Well, thank you, Griselda. We now move on to Midvaal, where the Democratic Alliance retained control of the municipality, having clinched 11 out of 15 wards, and did manage, of course, to snatch one ward from the ANC. Our reporter, Gillian Pillay, has that story.
We are coming to you from the Sicelo informal settlement here in the Midvaal municipality. This ward is a stronghold of the ANC. Just last week, provincial chairperson Paul Mashatile was electioneering in many of the wards in this municipality, but it appears it has yielded little results. This Midvaal municipality has been retained by the DA. The DA has also won 2 more wards, making that number to 11 out of 15. The DA has also reduced the voter turnout here, or the voter numbers from the ANC, which was at 42% now to 32%. Just to give you a sort of sense here, if you walk through this informal settlement that's largely made up of shacks and some RGP houses, you do get a sense of a lull in the air, a deep disappointment by many people who turned out in great numbers from this particular ward to vote, to cast their vote, to make a difference. And in talking to some of the voters, some of the people in what now is a retainment by the DA, they say they're very disappointed that the turnout has resulted in the DA retaining the municipality. Well, on the other hand, there's also a lot of celebration in this municipality by those who also came out in great numbers, who are DA supporters, who are saying that, you know, they're happy that the DA has retained the municipality. They're elated that you know, services will continue as it has. The DA, in our conversation with the DA mayoral, the mayor earlier this morning, him saying, Bongani Beloy, telling us that, you know, they're happy that they have retained the municipality, but they'll go back to the drawing board to look at how they can do things better from a municipality perspective, so that everyone can be brought into the fray, even those who are saying that the DA is not delivering on a service delivery scale here in this particular municipality.
Well, thank you very much to our reporter there, Gillian Pillay, on the ground there in Midvaal, as the DA retains that municipality since 2006. I think quite important now, Mr. Mavuso, for us to turn to something that looks like kind of a tie. Actually, a tie at this point. Very interesting. The Tshwane Metro there, the ANC and the DA, both on 42.9%. The DA as well. Certainly looks like at this point, with 48% of the votes there complete, the results they complete, the EFF at this point could be a kingmaker, couldn't it?
Yes. The DA and the ANC are living up to their promise that they will fight for the city of Tshwane. And the EFF said, we are coming as well. And they have arrived. Now that they now become the kingmaker. If these coalition sentiments come to reality, I don't see the EFF working with the ANC. Perhaps there could be something cooked between the DA and the EFF, of which now it means the city of Tshwane will be towards the new party, which is maybe between the EFF and the DA. But however, you look at this map, the traditional areas of the ANC, which is mainly the townships, they've been counted for, except 2 wards, I think Ward 99 and 100, they're still being counting. So it means where we're looking the major support of the ANC, it looks like they've counted most. What is left, if I look at that map, it is almost of the suburbs of Pretoria, like your Pretoria East, that is still have got to come into cover, and some areas of along the northern side, they have also been covered. The inner city has been covered as well. So whoever that is being counted now, it's a do or die for both all these parties that are now contesting.
But quite surprising. We're talking about you know, these township areas where just recently we saw massive protests. You know, against you know, a candidate you know, of the ANC, the mayoral candidate. But you know, all of that seems to have now fallen away. And instead of, I guess, what some analysts would have said would then be a knock for the ANC, is actually proved otherwise.
Like we said earlier on about Kliptown, that even if you can come on the eve of the elections wanting to who their votes, they still don't forget who they are. I think the people in the city of Tshwane from the traditional area of the townships, they still recognize the good that the ANC brought through the mayor, Kosiensi Ramokgopa, and now they are looking forward, perhaps it looks like, to working with the new mayor, Madam Togo Didiza. So that hasn't really swatted. Maybe they were upset, but now they are convinced that it is the ANC that rules according to their policy, not an individual. An individual is a deployee. Perhaps that has come into their senses. And Mayor Ramokgopa went all out to support this change, and I think they were convinced.
Just very quickly, that 11% by the EFF, that support certainly seems to be growing within the Tshwane area, as we look at that 48% of the total votes that have been accounted for at this point.
It looks like it's still growing. And you look at where are these votes coming from? We could think that maybe the 10% majority are young people who are really affected by our economy now. They want to see economic changes and in their lifetime, and they may want to push that agenda. Some, they came with the leadership of the EFF when they came from the Youth League of the ANC. That could be those people who are saying, we're together with you, but some perhaps they are seeing this a challenge that they are bringing from national to reality. And it says perhaps these are the people who can bring about an intervention in the whole process of governance. However, if they go like this on this close on neck on neck, this affects the PR allocation. Whoever takes it, the PR is limited because for you to have a better PR, you need to lead, you need to have more votes.
All right, I'm afraid we've run out of time there. Just a very quick check there, if we can, for Gauteng, exactly who is leading in Gauteng at this point. We're just going to try and get our board up there. The ANC at 44.3% and the DA at 40%. Of course, now more than half of those results that have been declared at this point are complete, and we'll certainly bring you more here from Gauteng as we've reached just slightly over the 50% mark. We'll cross to you a little bit later on as the results continue to trickle in here, but much of that focus certainly is on those metros at the moment, which in some, of course, you can see the ANC and the DA are really threading quite closely to each other. So I'm sure quite a lot of them at this point are really holding on to their seats, but certainly we'll monitor that from here at the IEC Gauteng Centre in Auckland Park.
Well, thank you, Criselda, and many thanks to our analyst there, Joe Mavuso, giving us a technical analysis of the numbers as they trickle in. Now, it's only safe to say that taking into cognizance the latest developments, I mean, it's safe to say that both the ANC and the Democratic Alliance may be forced to go into coalitions with smaller parties and independent candidates in order to forge outright majorities in all the municipalities that they're currently contesting. But then, having spoken to Mmusi Maimane a little earlier, he said it's rather too early for him to say whether the party is still pondering to go into any coalitions. And a short while ago, Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, did say that the party is open to coalitions, but on strict and stringent conditions. And the ANC mentioned a couple of months ago that, well, they are not so wary of getting into coalitions with other parties, given the unfavorable history of coalitions with the other parties. But then the ANC Gauteng top 5 leadership is making its way here to Auckland Park, and we'd like to get their perspective on what they expect on the coalitions and the general overview of their vote counting as it gets in progress. This is Nkandla and my colleague Criselda Louis coming to you live from the IEC Gauteng Rock in Auckland Park. Now, back to you in Pretoria.
Thank you so much to Simpiwe and Criselda there. We're back live at the Rock here in Pretoria, and it seems like things are really, really heating up at some point. The DA and ANC sitting at 42.96%. What are the actual figures there, Sam?
Yeah, I think it's just what Criselda was alluding to, that the margins between the DA and the ANC at this point, with over 50% or close to 50% counted, is so incredibly close. We constantly, from a media perspective, are talking about this coalition government. But let's quickly look at those numbers. In 2011, the ANC was at 56.46% when the ultimate count came in the city of Tshwane. 2006, 57. There was a slight drop for them. The DA has increased in 2006, they were at 30. 2011, they were at 38. And now they're currently sitting at 42.40%. This is as you were saying, it's an incredible story, and maybe the story of two completely different halves.
They've had contrasting fortunes, DA declining, or rather the ANC declining, the DA going up. The real difference here really for the ANC is that you have the EFF. And the EFF has sliced away a significant portion of support from the ANC. And added to that, of course, the ANC has had its own problems around the president, and you've had a great degree of unhappiness about those issues, especially with the black middle class here in Gauteng. So those two things, bad approval ratings for the president as well as the EFF. Those two critical things are costing the ANC.
Prof, hold it there for a minute, because we've got some action on the action floor there, where reporter Aldrin Sampier standing by with the ANC's Balegambete.
Well, the results continue to trickle in here at the Results Centre, the IEC Results Centre, better known as The Rock. And currently the ANC is still in the lead, close to about 10 million votes. And this is close to the 2014 votes that the ANC also got, around about 11 million votes. And right now I'm joined by the national chairperson of the ANC, Nkandla. Thank you so much for joining us. What's your sense of the numbers that have come in so far?
Well, it's still not a complete picture, so we really must limit our remarks on what it says to us. But on the whole, the ANC has done very well. And we're not surprised because I think we put up a very good fight. And I think on the whole, South Africans conducted themselves very well. There were tiny, areas of concern here and there. But the ANC is doing well, and we hope that later on, a couple of hours from now, we might be able to look at the complete picture.
Considering the amount of money that the ANC has spent on its campaign, where do you think the ANC might have dropped the ball?
I don't think we dropped the ball anywhere. Politics is the complete picture of everything that was taken into consideration. How we delivered the services that we have delivered. We interacted with our people. Our manifesto is very clear about the areas of improvement that we have recognized, and we have listened to our people very, very carefully, and we know exactly where the priorities are in terms of how we pick up the work that we have been doing in the various communities.
Well, let's quickly look at KwaZulu-Natal as well. The ANC hasn't been doing as well, I guess, as it has expected. Do you think that the internal politics of the party could have affected the voter turnout, could have affected the type of votes that the ANC has managed to garner, as well as what happened during the list conferences?
Again, I want to say that until such time that all results are in from various communities, from various municipalities, we cannot completely comment on what in fact has happened in particular provinces or particular municipalities. So let's wait and see what happens later.
Well, Madam Chair, just understand that the numbers are still coming in, but the new municipality that's currently being formed in Limpopo, that's the merger between Vuwani and Malamulele. The ANC is currently leading at about 84%. What does the ANC suggest the party could deal with the issue that Malamulele and Vuwani is currently facing, because that municipality will come to fruition after these August 3rd elections?
I think let the municipalities, let the councils sit as soon as the result picture is out, and those people that have been given the responsibility to lead various municipalities must convene the meetings and let people discuss the priorities, the programs that have to be embarked on, taking into account all the issues that had come up in the election campaign, where we listened very, very carefully to what our people were saying to us. And therefore, even there, we will listen to what our people are raising as the sharp issues of concern or of priority.
Would you say that whatever municipality or council is formed, there would be a legitimate council, even though the people of Vuwani did not participate in their numbers?
You know what? The question of how many people or what percentage of people didn't participate or participated, again, is going to be a function or result of a careful consideration of the activities of the past 24 to 36 hours.
Well, National Chairperson, thank you so much. That's the ANC's National Chairperson, Nkandla, speaking about the results that have come in so far. And a big issue for the ANC will be how to handle the issue of Vuwani and Malamulele. Remember, as it stands currently, that will be those two municipalities will merge after the results have been completed. And at the moment, as it stands, the ANC is currently in the lead, and the ANC has a big task ahead of it in terms of how it's going to choose the members of the mayoral committee, how it's going to set up those councils, and whether the people of Vuwani will respect whatever council will be elected into power. It's back to you guys in studio.
Thank you so much there to our roving reporter on the action floor, Aldrin Sampier. I mean, it appears that 76% of vote counting has been done in Gauteng, but as NC's Nkandla is saying, we shouldn't be saying much. We must reserve our comments before all the votes have been counted in. Prof?
I think the ANC has reason to be confident. I think most of the votes will still come from the townships. Neck and neck at this stage with 76 is not a bad thing. But as I said earlier, historically we would expect that all those votes from the townships would go to the ANC. But now with the EFF on board, it's quite possible that they might divide them. Yeah. It looks very likely that the ANC might not get to 50%, and in this case too, you might have to have a coalition.
I want to talk about something else, Prof, that we haven't really touched on, is the spoiled votes. I mean, going through these numbers very quickly, the city of Johannesburg, 4,970 spoiled votes. City of Tshwane, 4,164. Ekurhuleni, 7,011. Mpumalanga, 861. Lesedi, 367. Midvaal, 286, which of course was wholeheartedly won by the DA. And then in Mpumalanga, Western Area, 787. What does that really say about people's opinions of these elections?
If you look at those poll votes per voting station or per ward, they look bad. But if you bring them together, I think in the past they haven't exceeded 2% or something like that. So if they don't exceed that 2%, as has always been the case, then there's no reason to worry. But if you're seeing an increase in spoiled ballots, then that's some kind of a protest. For now, they are individual votes. Let's wait to aggregate them. If, as I said, if they're more than 2%, then there's a new picture they emerging.
Look, gentlemen, let's have a look. We've got the current graph there. Of course, the city of Johannesburg at 39% of the voting complete, and the DA is sitting at 42.9%. The ANC just over there at 42.2%, and of course the EFF, it's now gaining some ground. It was 7 about an hour ago. It's now on 10.9%. What does this picture paint to you, Prof?
The EFF seems to be maintaining its support. We've always known that in Joburg, in Pretoria, it's quite strong. And so far they have maintained that support. I think it was a good decision from them to focus on Gauteng. I mean, we were just talking earlier that they might not have done so well in Limpopo, which might raise certain questions because that's meant to be their home base. But Gauteng, the demographics of Gauteng has an appeal to them. Youthful, migrant job seekers, high concentration of informal settlements, because that's where they are concentrated. But it would also be interesting to look at how exclusively black middle-class neighborhoods have voted, because previously in places like Spruitview, Leondale, we have found voting stations where you have people 12%, 14% voting for EFF in areas where you would not expect middle-class people to vote for the EFF. That potentially shows the cross-class appeal that EFF has. Yes, economically it appeals to the unemployed, but in terms of rhetoric on issues of racial redress, talking against prejudice, they might be speaking on behalf of the black middle class, especially because the private sector remains largely untransformed.
Prof, we're going to leave it there, but let's go to Mpumalanga now, just to get a sense of what's happening there. Olebogeng is standing by for us, and she's going to give us a sense in Mahikeng of just how the votes have unfolded in that municipality. Olebogeng, good morning.
Good afternoon at The Rock. Welcome once again to the Mahikeng local municipality. We are at the IEC. Let's just take a look at the numbers on how the parties are doing. You can see that 70% of the support of the counted votes rather has been done in the Northwest Province, painted green representing the ANC government. Of course, let's zoom into Mahikeng local municipality where we are right now. The ANC standing at 61%, the EFF slowly coming in there at 17.6%, and the DA following at 10%. Perhaps looking at one of the hotly contested areas, the Rustenburg municipality, where Marikana is situated. You'll see that the ANC is still leading, a lower number though compared to Mahikeng, 43%, with the EFF coming in at about 23.8%. The EFF rather, the DA just on the trail of the EFF at 22.2%. Let's now go to Tlokwe, one of the other hotly contested municipality. Remember that they merged with the Ventersdorp municipality, and quite a lot of support for the ANC. Interesting to see, 57.6% right there. The DA coming in second at 25.4%, and the EFF following at just 7.8%. Let's also take a look at the rest of the Rustenburg area, the Moses Kotane municipality. A lot of support for the ANC, 66.1% rather, EFF standing at 21%, and the DA following there at about 4.7%. Perhaps let's also take a look at the other political parties that are not fairly represented here. Let's take a look at the UCDP there, just under 1% support in the whole province. The ACDP also under 1% support. The EFF coming in there at 21 seats. Quite interesting. The results, remember, they are still subject to change, always changing until the counting has been fully completed. Perhaps now let's take a little bit of a shift and talk about the IEC, talk to the IEC representative here in the province. We'll be talking. I'll invite now onto stage Nthabiseng Tsipani. She is the Provincial Operations Manager of the IEC in the province. Good afternoon, Nthabiseng, and welcome to SABC News.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us.
Just about 70% completed, exactly 70% of the counted votes completed. It seems a bit steady. It has been lingering at about 60% for most of the day. Is it usually how the pace is, or could it be quicker or slower?
We are currently sitting at 86%. We started off quite slowly. The reason for that is that we wanted the work to be done by our own officials. The electoral project coordinators are tasked with capturing of the results. We would not want to leave this in the hands of our temporary staff. So we started off capturing in the early hours of the morning. Today we are continuing now. We are going at a slow pace, but we're picking up. We are picking up as the glitches are being cleared out.
And when do you anticipate all counting of results to be completed?
The counting is done. What we are doing now is capturing into the system. And capturing entails physical capturing of the figures as they appear on the result slip. And then we scan the result slips. The purpose of scanning is to make sure that the political parties that are sitting here can access the result slip and compare what we say they have received per voting station with what is actually in the result slip. After scanning, then we go through to the auditors. There are auditors in each one of our capturing center. So they make sure that the numbers that have been captured actually tally with what is on the result slip. And after that process is completed, only then will the results show. So that is the process as it unfolds in the system.
I just mentioned the so-called hotspots, Marikana and Tlokwe. How has counting been there? Any incidents today?
Marikana is a hotspot, but I would not say that much. You know, this process started off on Monday with special votes. And when we started the day on Monday, we had challenges in the area of Kraipan in Ratlo municipality, where the community actually launched protest actions, and they would not allow us into the voting station. In one voting station, Tlakaje Primary School, we were totally denied access, not by anybody else, but by members of the community. The reason for their denying us access was related to their own community needs. That had nothing to do with the Electoral Commission. And as the day progressed in that area, in Ratlo Primary School, the community started gathering up and taking kids out of school. That was one of our voting stations. So we had to stop with special votes at the two venues, but we resumed with the work at around 11 o'clock. So those were a bit of glitches. But In the area of Tlokwe, strangely, we did not experience problems as we anticipated. Everything went smoothly, and we completed counting the ballots by early morning today. It is a known matter that one of our presiding officers, as they were driving from the venue, the school called Tsupang Primary School, they ran out of petrol with their private vehicle. But they were escorted by the police, and it was at that point where rumors started spreading that our officer is stuck on the road with a car, with the ballot boxes. But those ballot boxes then made their way through to the capturing center, and as we speak, the votes from that station have been captured.
Briefly, before we let you go, Mentabiseng, take us through the process of what happens now once counting has totally been completed, and what's next for the IEC in the Northwest Province after this?
Okay. After counting is completed, we start with capturing, which is what we're doing, where we are sitting at 80%, 86% right now. Once the process of capturing is done, the seats are allocated to parties according to the number of votes each one has managed to amass. There's PR ballots and there's ward ballots. Remember, ward vote is the winner takes all. So if you got the highest votes for the ward, then the ward is yours. But for PR, there's proportional allocation of seats to parties. So that process will start, and we'll see that happening onto the screen once capturing has been completed. And when that is done, the government is set, and then we'll dismantle the area and go back to our ordinary place of residence, which is the office we work at every day.
And what's the future for the IEC Northwest after this local government election?
You see, Electoral Commission is a permanent structure. It's an establishment of Chapter 9 of the Constitution. So once we're done with this particular responsibility, we go back to our offices, then we go back to the drawing board. Processes unfold. Voter education starts. We debrief and look at the pros and cons of what we did, our strength, and look at what we can do to make things better with the next election. There's legislative review that happens in consultation with political parties, and there's also a whole lot of consultative process. We go to outside worlds to go check how they do the work and how we can better the work that we do. And thereafter, 5 years is another election.
We'll just have to leave it at that because of time. Thank you so much, Ntabiseng Tsipane, the operations manager for the IEC here in the Northwest Province. Of course, one other man whom I'll be inviting onto stage, he's been with us, helping us to analyze the results, helping us to analyze the issues of the province. I'm talking about Professor Lisiba Tefu from the University of South Africa. He joins me now on set to talk about the results today. Professor, good afternoon once again and welcome to SABC News.
Good afternoon to the listeners as well.
Your predictions very quickly of a coalition when we last spoke to you, that doesn't seem to be likely. The ANC seems to be taking over the province.
Well, in the province, and I want to repeat, in the province, yes, the ANC was bound to win. Nationally, indeed, the ANC was bound to win. But all I'm saying is, with a fairly reduced majority, and even in Northwest, I'm inclined to say here and there will be coalitions, especially driven and informed by the good performance of the Forum for Service Delivery. I think it is going to be a key player in as much as the EFF is a key player in other provinces, especially in the metros.
And just before we leave, what has been your observation about this particular local government election? It was expected for most to be exciting, the most riveting, and perhaps the most disappointing for some people. What's your take on their overall performance during this LG elections?
Well, look, in terms of participation at national level, I think it has been fairly good. We are almost at 58% plus. I think that's good. And in terms of the negatives that often mar elections, especially across the continent, we are not subject to that. We have done fairly well, and kudos to the IEC. Now, in terms of the victors and the winners, I said it then, and I want to repeat myself even now, that it would be the ANC, the DA, and the EFF. But I'm saying there is a likelihood that there will be a tie at national level between the IFP and the EFF. I'm seeing the IFP as a resurgence party, though regionally based.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Lisibatefu. Once again, we'll be talking to you a little bit later as the results start trickling in. Back to you at the Rock. That is the word from the Northwest Province. That's also the word from the professor that we've been talking to. And just before I hand it over to you, just an invite to the people of the Northwest Province to join the conversation on our social media platforms. If you're in the Northwest and you speak the Tshwane language, our Facebook page is at SABC Dikgang ka Botlalo. That's where you'll find us. Twitter handle at SABC Dikgang. Bua le rona tla re itse gore o ikutlwa jang ka ditlhopho tsa gompieno. With that said, it's back to you at the Rock.
Thank you so much to Uleboheng, who is out and giving us a breakdown of how things stand in the Northwest. They're very interesting at the fact that in Mafikeng, it is 60.3% to the ANC at this stage. Prof, what do you make of these readings?
It's a good story to tell for the ANC. In the province as a whole, it's one of the provinces where they remain quite strong, but relatively speaking, you have to compare what they got now from the previous elections, and there you're seeing a different story. And in the Northwest as a whole, of course, you're having a new player emerging altogether. Forum for Service Delivery, made up essentially of ANC people who were marginalized, went out to form their own party. They might emerge as kingmakers, and of course, in the land of Marikana, where we saw this terrible massacre, the EFF has exploited that, also exploiting, Northwest has the highest, if not the second highest number of dysfunctional municipalities. So if we have dysfunctional municipalities, it means poor service delivery. And poor service delivery translates to unhappy people decline in support. In that sequence, simple as that.
Let's look at some of those numbers very quickly. I mean, we were talking about just over 60% in Mafikeng. But let's look at some of the other areas. In Matlosana, it's 58.9. When we look back at some of the results, at some point there was 79, up to 79% in that area. Datslobotla is 63%, Greater Taung is 62, Kagisano is 75. So really hitting some big numbers. But the other interesting thing is you talked about the EFF there, just over 18% ahead of the DA.
When we look at every result, we should not look at that result alone independently. We should always compare. The significance, the meaning of every result comes from comparison. And in this case, this confirms a general trend. Yes, in the province as a whole, they are still in command.
Professor,
but broadly speaking, they're dropping.
I have to interrupt you there. We do have breaking news, and our reporter is on standby, Vuwani in Port Elizabeth. A very good afternoon to you. Do give us the details.
Good afternoon. We are here outside the voting centre at the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, which is the ETC centre as well. We were alerted about a tent that's at the back here where they found some ballot papers that have been marked. We have fortunately been able to speak and get some answers from the IEC member who's here across Mpumalanga, who says he does confirm that those votes have been counted. However, political parties are very concerned of finding those papers there. How we actually found out about it is that some officials from the ANC were alerted by those papers that are in there thrown away with some boxes by the security guards. So there is a bit of concern. What we are getting, however, is that they have been counted, but obviously those political parties want confirmation just before, they end off this day counting up those votes. You will remember, Alicia, that they haven't concluded the votes here in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. So this did cause a bit of concern as the situation was already tense as is. So we will investigate further and we'll give you an update as soon as we have concrete answers from the IEC as well.
So much. If you were reported live to us from Port Elizabeth, and I guess that question really needs to be delved into, and I think the IEC needs to really tell us. Prof, what do you know about these ballots that are now found in the back of a tent, or somebody has driven off to a Shisanyama with the ballot boxes? What happens in that instance? Is that why we are seeing so many spoiled votes?
Well, it's not good. If someone takes ballot papers, that introduces the possibility of electoral fraud. It means someone is trying to influence the decision in an illegal manner. But then again, the IEC has a way of tracing. We've been told repeatedly that every ballot paper, every ballot box is accounted for. It has a serial number. It cannot just be introduced without a trail. right? So in this case, obviously, we would expect the IEC to come up with a very reasonable explanation as to whether or not those ballot papers are legitimate. If they are, have they been counted? All that stuff.
Well, if you were in that crossing to assess that, according to the IEC official, they have been counted. But this process is pretty strict. How do you account for ballot boxes disappearing out of a very strict process?
That's a very good question. I'm afraid I can't answer you. The IEC will have to answer that because you have police present there. You have party agents. You have interested parties supposedly observing and making sure that nothing is amiss. How they sneak out, do they become invisible? We doubt it. Someone obviously took them out, and how is it possible that that person was not seen? It's worrying.
We were just talking about it yesterday,
Yeah.
Sam. I mean, 41 officials were dismissed yesterday because of something related to the fact that it had something to do with the ballot boxes or something in the voting
Irregular,
station. So
yeah.
this now bears the credibility of the organization very badly.
Yes, it raises questions, but we should always look at this in a broad manner. The vibrancy of the IEC is as good as its citizens, active citizens, because ultimately you have individuals who work for the IEC. Some of them have their own biases. Some of them might be hired to do all sorts of shenanigans. The question is always, if you see something wrong, the challenge rather, if you see something wrong, you have to report it. Ideally, you would prefer to have honest people. But I'm afraid in this world, not all of us are honest.
I think the IEC could argue that that their process is so strict that even though it happened, that they have put the kind of controls in place to have detected that quite early and to be able to react to it. I think even yesterday, President Ndlozi wrapped the IEC over the knuckles when he talked about the opening of the late station, but he was also very quick to compliment them to say that at least they react quite fast.
That's the thing. Transparency is very good, because you cannot hide these things permanently. And if they surface somewhere with you trying to hide them, then you come out looking bad, right? They are not, you cannot really blame. It's not a conspiracy by the commission per se to rig the elections, but you have individuals who are responsible for this impropriety, right? So it's for the IEC to say, yes, we have a staff of almost 200,000 people. And in this huge, massive staff, you have bad apples. We have discovered them, and this is the action that we're doing. Their best defense against impropriety to ensure that they retain their integrity is transparency and quick action. And they've been doing exactly that. That's something to be commended.
Thank you for that, for raising that point there, Professor. While speaking of the IEC has appealed for patience as it captures the results. An independent audit verification process takes place before results are finalized and released to the public and media.
The IEC's first briefing post the 2016 local elections. The electoral body says small municipalities' voting results were prioritized. Metros including Johannesburg, Tshwane and Ethekwini are now the focus. This follows complaints that the results are released at a snail's pace.
I think it is important for us to say we are not going to rush results and compromise on the quality, but we would want you to have them as soon as we are satisfied with them. And I give you my assurance, the assurance of this commission, that that's what we are doing.
While political parties have their eyes glued to scoreboards at result centers, issues around tensions flaring among IEC officials were successfully resolved. The IEC also reacted to media reports that the EFF demands a by-election in Tlokwe.
EFF and independent candidates, I don't know if they've spoken to you, but they have certainly not spoken to us. We have nothing to show that there's a request or objection for a by-election.
The electoral body says the country's fifth municipal elections had a slightly higher turnout compared to previous elections. The average stands at 58.3% of registered voters who cast their votes. Patricia Fasache, SABC News, Pretoria West.
Okay, so as the details unfold here at the IEC ROC, part of the job is to cross to all the various provinces to find out how things are currently unfolding. Let's now cross to Sibongile Vuwani, who's in Mpumalanga, and looking at proceedings for us there. Sibongile, good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome to Mbombela in Mpumalanga. As you can see, this is the map of the province. Currently, we have about 4 municipalities that have been completed counting, and those municipalities have been retained by the ANC. But what is interesting about the province is that if we take a look here, which is the area called Bushbuck Ridge, that area, the ANC is leading, followed by the Residents Association, Bushbuck Ridge Residents Association at 15%, and EFF is trailing behind there at number 3. Now, talking to the IEC earlier on, they told us that everything went smoothly. All the polling stations closed on time last night, and the counting continues. Some of the stations or municipalities are sitting at 90%, 97%. We have 17 municipalities in the province, so the 4 that have been completed, they are led by the ANC, which is leading in the province, followed by the DA and EFF trailing behind, except for that area, that Bushbuck Ridge that I had mentioned, that the Resident Association is currently sitting at number 2. There were disputes with the EFF saying that they are going to go to court because they are saying that the election, they are questioning, in fact, the authenticity of the results, accusing some of the IEC officials of taking opened ballot papers with ballot boxes to their homes and returning with them to polling stations for counting. They are alleging that those ballot boxes were not sealed. They are saying that they have complained to the IEC. And when we spoke earlier with the EFF, they were saying that they are going to call for these elections, saying that they were not free and fair. They are also alleging that in Bushbuck Ridge, where BRA, the Residents Association, enjoys a strong presence, they are saying that people there were not allowed to vote in the 3 ballot papers. They were only given 2 ballot boxes. But of course, those allegations, those are still allegations. We haven't had a proof from the EFF, as well as from the police confirming if a case has been opened, or from the IEC confirming that they have received those reports in the province. But currently, the province is currently sitting at 63% in terms of counting all the votes casted in the province. And it's back to you in Pretoria.
Sibongile Nkandla live to us, of course, from Bushbuck Ridge. There is it Bushbuck Ridge, Sam?
Yeah.
And of course, it looks like 63% of the votes have been done. The NC comfortably sitting at 71%. The BRA, interestingly enough, I think even the professor was asking now, who is this party? And of course, it is what is it? The Bushbuck
Residents Association.
Residents Association.
Yeah.
It's currently second on 15.78%, with the EFF trailing behind by 5% there. What do you read into these figures, Professor?
I don't want to say political parties are withering away, but their dominance now is challengeable. Initially, we thought parties were pretty much unchallengeable. But now you're seeing with Northwest, now Mpumalanga, you might see similar trends elsewhere.
The spike in independent candidates as well, Professor.
Politics is becoming local, and local politics ought to be local. This is where the credibility of individual persons matter. If I know you, you are a person of integrity, it's very easy for people to vote for you. So the prominence, the stature of the national organization, of the national party, is no longer as strong as it previously was. And this is a lesson as well to the ANC, that it doesn't help bringing in your big guns. You better make sure that you sort out your local situation, have credible local leaders, make sure that you run your processes well, because ultimately people are not entirely impressed by national figures, but care about the councillor who ultimately, when all the razzmatazz has ended, are left with, and that person will have to deliver. So individual matters. The idea of collective leadership has been overrated. Individuals do matter and character does matter.
I want to look at some of those numbers because we had our graphic up a little bit earlier. But if we look back at 2006, 2011, 2016, in 2016, ANC was sitting at 85.22%. Of course, back then, the BRA in 2011 was only 9.85%. But in 2016, they're already sitting at 16.88%. And that really speaks to what you were saying, that it's really the issues on the ground that are really the deciding factors when it comes to issues that we were talking about related to job creation, service delivery issues, which has actually been one of the big talking points in the run-up to this election.
And I'm a bit surprised that, because there's been a lot of tension within the ANC in Mpumalanga, especially between the ANC and the Communist Party. The former Premier, Matthew Posa, has had a series of spats with Didi Mabuza there, and I thought that tension would be exploited. You might have other parties, especially emerging from the ANC. It speaks perhaps to how well Didi Mabuza has managed to control and contain tension. In politics, patronage plays well. You can buy people off, even if they claim not to like you, because based on popular reports, he's supposed to be disliked by a whole lot of people within the ANC. But you don't have a strong dissent coming out. Instead, you have, it looks like an isolated case, perhaps, we don't know, but in this case, in Bushbuck Ridge only, it doesn't seem to be widespread throughout the province.
You know, Prof, I wanted to ask very quickly, but I just want to take our viewers through that graphic quickly. If the infighting that we've seen relates to anything in terms of the dominance or the relevance of the party on the ground. But let's quickly look at that graph there in Mpumalanga. 80% of the votes have been completed. The ANC in the lead with 70.32%. The DA 14% and the EFF 9.42% there.
It's impressive. It's impressive. The DA perhaps would have wanted to do even more. Because in Mpumalanga, there's been some degree of unhappiness, the corruption, unhappiness with corruption, poor service delivery, all sorts of allegations about how Didi Mabuza runs the province.
Back to the people on the ground in this matter, Professor. It always boils down to that.
Yeah, so he's done, I think he should be commended that he's managed to retain. If this sustains and despite the problems that he has had, and yet he still managed to do this, it's something to be proud of. But relatively speaking, of course, this is a decline compared to what the ANC has been getting in that province.
I want to quickly touch on the APC. If you look at kind of where they're sitting at the moment, yet again, the big story probably is the EFF, who is sitting behind BRA, the DA just over 2%, and then you've got Temba Gori at the bottom end there. We haven't really seen the smaller parties, with the exception of, and I really want to talk about the PAC in many ways, but I'm coming through the APC. It has really been a struggle for the little parties with limited budget, having to maybe look at where the strongholds are, contest there, and let's get rid of the rest. Let's work with the budgets that we have. The UDM has talked extensively about volunteers that have come through that were not financially compensated, but they've had to try and contest as hard as the big parties without the resources.
Well, political parties are led by people. That's perhaps a major problem with egos and ambition. And people have a tendency of saying one thing and doing something completely different. Everyone wants to be a leader, I'm afraid, because when you come into a room, people stand up for you, you get pampered, you get all sorts of attention, your ego balloons. And I must say, I don't know how Temba Gori does it. He must have some formula that he should share perhaps with the PAC. I mean, the PAC is preserving historical memory. A party that has been beset with bickering, infighting, and you look at the party itself and you wonder, what are they even fighting for? Because there's really nothing there. There's no there, right? Yeah. But they continue to fight. You would want some consolidation. A one-person party doesn't quite do it, which is what Tembakoti is.
This is, you know what it is. You talk about the PAC. Yesterday I spoke to Jackie Soroke on the floor, and he was talking about that they were contesting over 2,000 wards. And he said it, that they are campaigning for something completely different, is to show that they're still alive and that they're still here, where the other parties are campaigning for something completely different, whether it's to run metros, municipalities. But the PAC is making a completely different statement altogether.
Well, they've given up on winning anything, so they have to fight for something, which is that they are fighting against being forgotten. It's a fight against forgetfulness, that they were there, they continue to be there. That's the price, to be remembered, I suppose. I mean, because they have no machinery, their campaign is poor, they are fighting among themselves, and a party like that can't quite get anywhere.
Well, if to quote you there, Sam, he did say that they are planning for these particular elections to turn the party from being a war horse to a racehorse.
That's the word. That's the words he used. Yeah. Spot on, Alicia.
But now, Professor, I mean, since we're talking about that, I mean, looking at Vuwani, we still remember that there were leaders that were actually arrested during the course of this week, and we know that they have appeared in court and so forth. But speaking to your earlier point, the importance of party leadership on the ground, how valuable is this, particularly dealing with municipal elections?
It's very important. In the case of Vuwani, we need to probe that question fairly strong. Whether you have popular rejection of democratic structures, that's one, or you have elite people who are sponsoring instability to create a council, right? Or they know that if they move out of this council into a different council, they might lose out on positions, because a new municipality will be formed. And, forming councils, these positions are very important, not only because they bring power, but they bring control over budgets. There's a huge fight. That is why people are being killed. Because if you are a councillor, you have access and influence over how budget and monies are allocated. So we need. I don't think that you have, the vendor-Shangaan tension to a point where people can burn up their own town. And historically, these are people that have lived together. So we should not look at the reports and make definite conclusions. I think it's time for professors and everyone else, social scientists, to look into these issues. Perhaps you could have also a problem of poor communication, poor consultation. That's possible. People have always complained about that. But I wouldn't want us to settle to a situation where we say Venda and Shangaans are refusing to live together.
And on that point, Sam, I don't know what you wanted to do, but
I wanted to ask a question related to leadership, but I know Aldrin Sampia is standing by and he's with an IEC official. Let's cross to Aldrin very quickly.
Well, we continue with our coverage of the election results as it continues to trickle in. Let's looking at the scoreboard at the moment. The ANC still leading with 85 councils, followed by the DA with 18 and the IFP with 5. And right now, actually, I'm sitting with the IFP's Member of Parliament, Liesl van der Merwe. Thank you so much for joining us. The IFP is among those parties that are actually breaking the numbers. First, we had the DA. We also had the EFF, which has increased its voter base, and the IFP is doing exactly the same.
Yeah, Aldrin, at this stage we are feeling very, very confident, very happy with the results that are currently on the board. As you would see, we're currently standing on 4.85%. We're hoping to still increase that as the hours go by. But really for us today, it's a good day. We're feeling positive. We are thanking South Africans for coming out in their numbers and voting IFP.
And the difference of the IFP's campaign this time around is that you've also decided to go into areas like Limpopo, for instance, where you weren't that big before. And this time around, you've decided to go into those areas. Understand the Northern Cape, you weren't contesting there. But what did you guys take into consideration when it comes to the areas where you contest for these elections?
Well, of course, South Africa at this moment, we're facing quite a lot of problems in terms of the economy, unemployment, joblessness, especially joblessness amongst the youth. And we felt that we had something to offer, and we didn't only just go to Limpopo, but we campaigned across the country. Like you rightly said, we only didn't compete in the Northern Cape, but we went to the Western Cape, to the Eastern Cape, to the Free State, Limpopo and elsewhere, bringing our message of good governance to the people of South Africa, and I think it has been well received.
What do you say to critics who say that the IFP is still considered to be a party of people from the Zululand, from KwaZulu-Natal? Even if you look at the scoreboard at the moment, the IFP, which is in orange, there are lots and lots of dots of the IFP in orange, lots of councils that you've received. And of the 5 councils that you've received currently, all those councils are in KwaZulu-Natal. How do you then, as a party, start removing that scale?
Well, of course, that is a criticism we've always had. We face that all the time. But the fact of the matter is the votes that you're seeing on the board might be predominantly coming from KwaZulu-Natal, but they are definitely not only from KwaZulu-Natal. If you have a look at the results that we got in front of us, you'll see that there are votes that are coming in from elsewhere. So you might only be seeing a few spots there in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment, but we are by no means at the end of the counting, and you'll see more votes coming in from across the country, especially in Gauteng and elsewhere for the IFP.
Would it be a fair observation that the reason that the IFP is doing as well as it is because of what the NFP has experienced?
Well, we did say that we did welcome back many of the rank and file members of the NFP prior to them actually being excluded from the elections. So I wouldn't say it's just because they were excluded from the elections, but we did say in the lead up to the elections that we are asking those members to return home to the IFP. We did welcome their leaders, some of their former mayors back to the party. So I wouldn't say it's just because of those members returning. I would say it's because the people of KwaZulu-Natal are again asking the IFP to take control of the province, to provide service delivery and good governance, which we are known for in the province.
What we saw back in 2011, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, is that there were about 19 municipalities or councils that were considered to be hung councils, and you have the NFP at the time that decided to go into a coalition with the ANC. And this time around, the NFP isn't there. For the IFP, is that something on the cards? What are some of the conditions that the IFP is putting on the table, if at all it is considering coalitions?
Well, at this stage, Aldrin, we are not talking coalitions. We are going for an outright victory in KwaZulu-Natal. There is still many of our strongholds outstanding in KwaZulu-Natal, and I think we will tally up the numbers and make those decisions when we've got all the final results at this stage.
Well, thank you so much. And just looking at the scoreboard, an indication that the IFP is also retaining the municipality or the local council of Nkandla. You'd remember that President Jacob Zuma is from Nkandla, and the IFP is retaining that council. The IFP support base in Nkandla has increased. They're sitting right now at about 54%, but the ANC support base has also increased to about 44%, and some analysts are arguing that that is because of what the NFP has gone through. Remember that the NFP weren't allowed to contest the elections in many places across the country, except for one municipality, which the IFP has also secured. It's back to you guys in studio.
Thank you so much, Aldrin, on the action floor. But, Prof, what do you make of that? The IFP clearly stating that for them, they don't see any talks of coalitions.
Well, that's what they're saying now. I mean, if you have hung councils, obviously you must have a municipality that functions. And for a municipality to function, you must have some kind of a coalition. But I'm afraid there's a lesson to be learned from the previous 5 years. We've had a number of these hung councils in Western Cape, for instance, and some of them, Olton is a prime example of it, where it was literally dysfunctional. The parties were bickering and fighting, one wanted to get an edge over the other. So the issue is, how do you design a framework that ensures that if one person doesn't pull out, then you don't collapse the entire council? Because that's the issue. So far, they don't seem to, and which is very important, and it will be important now. When you choose a partner, like in any situation, choose a person you can live with. So they will have to choose someone who will not collapse the marriage. You don't just choose anyone just because you want to get into bed, right? It has to be something that is sustainable. The past 5 years have been quite critical as a lesson for us going forward.
All right, Sam, let's take a quick one. Do you want to ask the Professor something quickly before we go to
I
Durban?
just wanted to ask you, Professor, one of the big things that comes out of this coalition debate is that parties are quite happy to get married, but when it comes to real decision making, that the kingmakers normally feel left out of that decision making. And a couple of days ago, that is exactly what the UDM leader, Bantu Olamiso, was alluding to in his conversation, where he was saying that they're not really up for coalitions, that they've found it to be negatively impacting them down the line.
It's a serious dilemma. Because yes, you are in a coalition, but you want to remain a separate party. You want to retain your own identity because you will have elections. Come elections, you'll have to go to the voters and tell them what you have done. You still want them to recognize you. That, oh, it's the same fellow that we voted for previously. But if you have become so fused, right, if you have been swallowed up, then
and
it's
we've
difficult.
Seen that example with the ID and the DA initially in the Western Cape.
Yeah. It becomes difficult, therefore, to claim certain things that the municipality would have done. So there's always an inclination with an eye at the next election. Inclination by parties to remove themselves or to claim victories as their own by, nudging other parties so that when you have the next elections, you can always say, well, we did this without this other partner. It's a tough situation to be in. That is why preferably, in as much as we encourage multi-party democracy, preferably you want to have a majority party in power because they are in charge, they make decisions and they're decisive. There are very few variables there they have to deal with. But in coalition, you're dealing with people here, egos and everything else. So it becomes a complicated situation.
You also have to hold people accountable, I suppose. Let's cross now to Durban Live, where Ayanda Mhlongo is standing by with the latest update from there.
We are scheduled to have our second briefing, first briefing, on the announcements of results for the 2016.
All right, we are going to monitor what the IEC update is going to be all about. Now, as you know, they keep on giving constant briefings on the processes of the election so far, so we will be crossing that to that live. But, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at that board right now, just over 78% of those votes in. Northern Cape a little bit earlier is already 100% counted, so there are still some interesting variables that is sitting on the table. We do remember a little bit earlier that Mambaleka Mbete was saying that, remember, let's not talk about anything until that final number, that final count has been done.
Well, yes, there are some votes that have to come out, but at 80% where provinces,
all right,
metros
Prof, let's
have
leave it
counted.
there and dip into that briefing now.
I'm going to give you a status of the capturing process for the results. All in all, we had 63,001 result slips to capture, and 92% of those have already been captured. However, once they are captured, as you are aware, they have to undergo auditing amongst other processes, and they also have got to be scanned in the system so as to allow party agents, political parties to have an opportunity to view the captured result against the image of the result slip from the voting station. So although we have captured 92.7% of the result slips, those that are complete, in other words, those that have been through auditing, as well as those that have been scanned into the system, is 83.3%, which means we still have about 10,496 results slip to process before we finalize the results capturing process, amounting to 16.7%. That's what is currently outstanding. Our projection is that by late evening, we would have reached the completion rate of about 90%. So 90% of all results will be in and complete by late evening today, which means the balance of the results will come through during the course of the day tomorrow. Our projections are that by early evening tomorrow, all results will be in the system. In terms of the metros, the 10% that is to be done tomorrow will relate largely to the finalization of the capturing process in the metros. However, there is an exception. Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality is currently at 91.3% complete. So we're working very hard in that part of the world to declare that municipality sometime during the course of this evening. There are just 44 result slips that have to be captured, scanned, and audited at that municipality. There have been questions regarding Ethekwini. Ethekwini, they started a bit slow this morning. They needed to do the verifications with presiding officers, check the voting station diaries, and so on. There's also been a technical glitch with our scanning equipment in Ethekwini. But they are now moving. They have captured 55% of all result slips in that municipality. In conclusion, the Commission is also in the process of considering a number of objections that have been raised by a number of candidates as well as political parties, and the files that have been opened in relation to that at the moment is 19. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DCO, for the update. I'm just going to allow a few questions of clarity or any other matters, but as it is, we definitely slowly are about to end or come out of the 2016 municipal elections, as our electoral officials are busy doing the last phase of these elections. If there are any hands of clarity, any questions?
All right, that was the IEC's media briefing. And as things stand, there now 92.2% of the result slips have been captured, and 83.3% still, or those have been captured into the system, and 10,496 of the results still to process, and that accounts to about, or amounts to about 16.7%. And they're saying that they are predicting to have completed all the vote counting by late evening, with all the results in the system by early evening tomorrow.
Yeah, and Professor, I just want to touch on one specific point that was mentioned by the IEC, Simon Mabolo. Before we go to Durban, Nelson Mandela Bay, over 91% already counted. Is it too early to make a prediction yet, or should we hold our horses just a little bit?
I think it might be time. I don't know, perhaps to be on the safe side, let's wait for 95%. But I mean, it's pretty clear. The question is PR here. PR vote seems to be turning the tide for the DA. The ANC, it looks like, might have won the largest number of wards at 36, 37. But the turnout, you see, that's the key. The turnout in DA strongholds was a lot higher than in ANC strongholds, which is what giving the vote to the DA. But 91 is not. It's not. Wouldn't be a bad call, but perhaps to be on the safe side, perhaps 95.
Okay. All right, let's now see if our crossing is standing by in Durban. That is Ayanda Mhlongo, who is at the Regional IEC Results Operations Center there. Good afternoon, Ayanda. What is the latest from that side? All right, we're struggling to establish the link there with Ayanda Mhlongo on the scene. But I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at the Ethekwini municipality. I was just taking a look through some of the numbers that came in through. Do you have any definitive figures there, Sam, with you?
Okay, so let's look at some of those results for the Ethekwini municipality. Right now, it's at 27% for the African National Congress and 25.71% for the Democratic Alliance. The Economic Freedom Fighters is just sitting over 1% at 1.7%, and then of course the Nkandla Freedom Party at 1.50%.
Yep. It will be interesting to see how much of the vote has been declared. But I think the DA has cause to be happy because it's almost neck and neck, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it would be nice also to see how the independents are doing there because you had about more than 50 independents contesting Ethekwini, and again the same phenomenon. ANC people who felt that they were dealt with harshly have left the party to become independents, and elsewhere those independents have picked up a few support. Then the question is, will they do the same at Ethekwini?
Well, let's find out from Durban if they do have that comprehensive update from Durban. Ayanda, take it away.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Alicia and Sam, from the Results Centre here at the Durban ICC. Just some quick breaking news. Alicia, we have unconfirmed reports of ballot boxes that have been found in Limontville. This is to the south of Durban. We have our teams on the way there to Limontville, and we'll also be speaking to the IEC about that. So that is one issue that is of concern. We also understand that some political parties are making their way to Limontville to find out what exactly is happening there. But also the long-awaited results from the Metro are now in, and I heard you just speaking about them now. The updated results at the moment are so far about 49% of the results have come through. Remember now, throughout the day we have been waiting for these results to come through, and at the moment the ANC is leading with 46.78%, followed by the Democratic Alliance with 39.58%, and the EFF they're coming in at 2.83%. Another development from the province, of course, is around coalitions. There are parties that seemingly at the moment do not have an outright majority, and one of those areas is to the far north of KwaZulu-Natal, and that is in Maduba, where the ANC and the IFP both have 18 seats at the moment. Now, to discuss this, I'm joined once again by our political analyst, Dr. Bheki Mngomezulu. Dr. Mngomezulu, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thank you.
Who is likely to be a kingmaker?
From the look of things, if you look at the results, the way they are right now, you have the IFP with 18 seats, and you have the ANC with 18 seats, and then you have the DA. So basically what it means in this instance that if the DA were to forge relations with the ANC, then the ANC would be in charge of the municipality, working in coalition with the DA. Same way, if the DA were to join hands with the IFP, then the same situation would apply. But then that is just the immediate possibility. The other possibility is that one of the two major parties, in this case the IFP and the ANC, might decide to take one of the smaller parties and then see how many seats those parties have, and then form a coalition with them so that they can then run the municipality without the other party. But it will be very interesting to see which option they will go for.
I'm just looking here on this side of our screen where you see the EFF now is coming out with 3.58% after the Democratic Alliance. Could the EFF be another option for one of the political parties who are in the lead?
The EFF is a very interesting case because from the look of things, I don't see the EFF forming a coalition with the ANC. That one is for me something we shouldn't even consider, because before the election, the EFF had already made it explicitly clear that it was not going to work with the ANC at any point. But then the other possibility then would be the EFF working with the IFP. that one is a possibility. Of course, I don't see that relationship lasting for much longer. It wouldn't be sustained, but at least that one for me is a possibility. But I don't see the EFF joining hands with the ANC.
Other municipalities at the moment where there is no clear majority include Edumbe, Mutu, Escort, and even Josine. So it seems it's going to be quite interesting, Dr. Ngomezulu, exactly what is going to happen in all these municipalities.
Yeah, it's not surprising. Some of us had already anticipated that given the number of smaller parties, given the fact that the EFF has joined the fray, and given that we have a number of independent candidates, this situation was about to happen in any way. So basically, it's not surprising that we have a number of hung municipalities where coalitions then become the only option under the circumstances. So it's not surprising at all.
All right, I'm going to hold you there, Dr. Ngomezulu, now, and go to another municipality that we have been following very closely, and that is Nkandla, hotly contested between the ANC and the IFP. And my colleague Linda Mkobozi was in Nkandla earlier on today.
Good afternoon, Ayanda. We are here at Nkandla municipality. There's been jubilations throughout the morning, and the IFP apparently has taken over this municipality. You must remember in 2011 it was won by a coalition of IFP and ANC, but a year later the IFP took it through a by-election. And now, here I'm having the mayor of Nkandla, who is also the incoming mayor. He is also the chairperson of the IFP in Nkandla. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much to yourself and your viewers.
A great day for the IFP at Nkandla.
Well, indeed, it's a great day not only for the IFP but even for the citizen of Nkandla, because it's not about the IFP, it's about the life of the people who are living here in Nkandla. As you mentioned, that in 2011 the municipality was lost because of the split of the IFP and the NFP, and no political party won with a majority. As a result, political parties were forced to form a coalition. As a result, the ANC and the NFP led the municipality when a by-election occurred in 2012. That is why the IFP won that ward and won back the municipality. Then I started in the office of the mayor in the past 3 years. Since then, the Nkandla people have been seeing a lot of changes in their lives and also in the infrastructure around Nkandla. For an example, as I speak today, since I'm saying this is not only about the IFP, but it's about the life of the people. This municipality in the past 3 years has been able to assist the orphans, to assist the children from the poor families that are unemployed. With the bursaries, has been able to provide even the bursaries, licenses bursaries, have been able to even bury the indigent families, has gone an extra mile even to fight hunger and poverty through the programs of the cooperatives, wherein we were encouraging communities that are unemployed, that are living at home to form groups, and we trained them, and we also supported them with the infrastructure.
I can see that you have not only retained your wards, but you've taken more wards from the ANC.
Definitely, the IFP have taken back even the wards that were led by the ANC. I can mention Ward 7 and Ward 11. Even the ward where the president of the country resides, which is Ward 14, you'd be surprised that we only lost with 91 votes. In fact, we won most of the VDs. Even the VD where the president was voting, the margin was not quite as huge as it was previously. That was showing that the people of Nkandla, they are gaining the confidence, strength from strength.
All right, that was my colleague Linda Mkobozi in Nkandla. Of course, that municipality has been won by the IFP. All right, now behind me, the provincial electoral officer Mawetu Mozare is giving an update. Let's cross now to the podium and take a listen at what he has to say.
I don't think I have to indicate anything else. Yes, thank you very much.
All right, it seems we just missed, just got the end of Mawetu Mazare's update, but we will certainly be chatting to him. We also still need to find out, of course, about the boxes that were found in Lamontville, so we'll certainly give you an update about that from the IEC. All right, now let's come back to my discussion with Dr. Begum Mngomezulu. Dr. Mngomezulu, the Nkandla. You can see the IFP is already celebrating. It's one of the municipalities that have won. They have won by a majority.
Yeah, the Nkandla municipality is another one of the most interesting municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal for the simple reason that this is the home base of the current president. And given the fact that the president went to vote in that municipality, one would have expected that maybe the local community would sympathize with one of their own coming to join them. And the fact that he didn't use his VIP status but decided to join the queue and be there with them for about an hour waiting to cast his vote, one would have expected that maybe that would count to his advantage and his party's advantage. Unfortunately, then, it's not the situation we see happening. I think that is partly because the IFP has been in charge of that municipality, and maybe some services were delivered, I'm not too sure, but then at least according to the electorate, they are basically happy with the current status quo, and they would rather retain it than take the risk of giving the mandate to another political party. So it's very interesting, but indeed it's a reality. The IFP is celebrating it in Nkandla.
On aside from Nkandla, they also seem to have done well in other municipalities, which they have said in the build-up to this election that they want to regain control of those municipalities. Absolutely.
If you look across KwaZulu-Natal, there are quite a number of municipalities that the IFP has either retained or added into its list. You talk about Nongoma, you talk about Ulundi, Metropolitan and all of that. So basically there are a number of municipalities, some of which of course have always been the IFP stronghold, but then some of them we didn't expect the IFP to win. I think there are a couple of factors that have played into this. One of them being the absence of the NFP, because some of the voters who would have voted for the NFP now ended up voting for the IFP. So basically then it means that of the two major parties, that is the ANC and the IFP, thus far it looks like the IFP has had an edge in terms of attracting supporters from the NFP. As much as some have voted for the ANC, as you can see, the municipalities that the ANC has obtained, but it looks like the IFP has been the main beneficiary in this election.
Another party, the Democratic Alliance, contesting, of course, for the first time in wards across the country and the province as well, also seem to have made some steps inroads in some of the municipalities at other parties. I mean, for example, the African National Congress has for years tried to make inroads into areas in Zululand, for example.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. The ANC has been trying to appeal to the wider range of voters in KwaZulu-Natal, including, especially around Ethekwini, including the previously Indian community, places like Charlesworth, for example, Phoenix and all of that. But then the presence of the DA and its decision to act earlier than the ANC did has paid off, because we have seen the DA making some inroads in those areas which the ANC also wanted to have access to. So basically then I would say the coming into the picture of both the EFF and the DA has in a way affected the plans of the ruling party, that is the African National Congress. As much as it stands to win Ethekwini, but then of course it would have wanted to gain more municipalities than is currently the case.
Dr. Mngomezulu, I want to come back to the Ethekwini Metro, and of course, as we've been saying, we've been waiting the entire day for the results here in the Metro. The independent candidates, we have not spoken about the independent candidates. They've been contesting 57 wards in the Ethekwini Metro, and what we understand is that 5 independent candidates have already won their wards.
Yeah. That one too should not surprise us. The problem with independent candidates is that they leave their old political parties either because they're disgruntled about certain things or because their voices could not be heard, and then they decide to leave. So basically those ones live out of anger. But then you have another category of independent candidates who were never members of any political parties, but then just decided to go it alone. So in this case, we have 57 of them, and of those 57, only 5 are set to win some seats or some municipalities. Then now the next challenge will be, what do they do with the support that they have? Because there is no municipality that will ever be led by an independent candidate. So what these independent candidates will now have to do will be to take their seats and then go around knocking at the doors of the existing political parties and say, this is what we have, this is what we are putting on the table, what are you offering us? And then depending on what the parties are promising them, they will then say, okay, fine, we are ready to work with you. So basically the fate of the independent candidates is at the hands of the existing political parties.
Most of them come from the ANC, and that emanated from the list processes. People were disgruntled and they decided to go on it on their own. Has the ANC, for example, shot itself in the foot by the list processes?
Yeah, in fact, the candidates or the independent candidates that left the ANC and decided to go it alone. For now, it sounds okay because some of them have won certain municipalities. But in the long run, it is going to work to their disadvantage because they can no longer go back to the ANC, either because of their own pride or because the ANC doesn't want them back. But then secondly, it will be hard for them to find new homes elsewhere because chances of them being trusted are very minimal. But thirdly, and most importantly, the fact that they left the ANC out of anger then means that once the anger subsides, then they will be in trouble.
Well, right now we welcome our viewers. Well, right now we welcome our viewers from SABC2 on this live broadcast on the election results, and we're coming to you from KwaZulu-Natal, the results center at the Durban International Convention Center. In our discussion, we are with a political analyst, Dr. Bheki Mngomezulu, looking at the results that have so far been coming into the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and our focus at the moment is on the Ethekwini Metro. It's been a couple of hours, in fact, that the people of KwaZulu-Natal, and more certainly the people here in the Metro, have been awaiting these results, and finally they have started to come in. At the count now, we're at around 49% of the results that have come through, almost at 50%, and the ANC in the Metro currently is in the lead with 46.78%. The Democratic Alliance coming in at 39.58%, followed by the the EFF rather at 2.83%. Certainly, Dr. Mngomezulu, it's been a very, very interesting election, I must say, and the results, particularly in our province.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. If you look at the three political parties, that is the ANC, the DA and the EFF, they are basically trying their best to make their presence felt. But one other thing that is of particular importance when it comes to Ethekwini in particular is the absence of the IFP. As much as the IFP is showing some progress, or at least it is showing that it has regained ground throughout the province, the same is not true of Ethekwini. So that's why they are not in the top three at the moment. So basically, it means that the status quo is going to remain. Of course, right now, we have about 50% of the votes in, but then even with the remaining votes, I don't see the IFP coming into the picture, at least at Ethekwini.
All right, Dr. Bheki Mngomezulu, thank you very much for your time and your analysis of the results across the province and also the Ethekwini Metro. Of course, we will be updating you on that breaking story from Durban, the ballot boxes that were found outside a hall in Limpopo. For now, let's take things back to Pretoria.
Thank you so much to Ayanda Mhlongo there out at the IEC Centre out in Durban, giving us a rundown of what exactly has been happening. Interesting things happening at the Ethekwini Metro. I mean, 49% of the votes have already been cast, and it looks like the ANC is currently leading the standings there. But let me take this moment to welcome Acting Police Commissioner on our panel, Mr. Komoto Pashane. Acting Commissioner, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Any related incidents, particularly when it comes to the hotspots nationwide?
At this stage, we do not have any issues in any of the areas that we would have categorized as hotspots. The process went very well yesterday, and as the police, we are in that space where we are watching the counting with a close eye, monitoring the situation, going into the celebrations and those that will be mourning to make sure that they do that responsibly.
So I think one of the big things are, and it's been two breaking stories for us, ballot boxes in PE and ballot boxes found in Durban. What will that process be now if there is to be an investigation?
Well, I hear that for the first time, but that will be processed through the provincial jogs and the national joints. An investigation will be conducted to determine where those ballot boxes come from, how do they land wherever they were found, and those that are responsible, if found to be true, will be pursued.
Look, Lieutenant General, you say it's been rather peaceful throughout the day. I mean, but what are some of the challenges that you have encountered and that you have resolved? If you can just give us some examples.
I think we are on record having said that this is one of the elections we pride ourselves with as the South African Police Service and law enforcement agencies, but also wanting to appreciate the role played by our communities in making sure that we deliver a safe and secure one. There will have been some sporadic incidents that we had to manage. For example, in the early hours of this morning in Athlone in the Western Cape, our members were in the process of loading the ballot boxes, and as he was carrying the box, was approached by, I will call him a criminal, because I don't think it had anything to do with politics or electioneering. And the member was shot in the stomach. Fortunately, he is in a stable condition, recovering at a hospital in the Western Cape. So that's one of the serious incidents that we would have recorded. Yesterday, somewhere in Malamulele, there was a situation where a person came into the voting station, pretended to be taking a call. When he was called to order by the presiding officer, a scuffle ensued, and in that process there was an attack on our members, and when those people were pursued, one of our vehicles was involved in an accident, and unfortunately in the process also knocked down a pedestrian, but fortunately that person is also still alive. So I can't find many such incidents which suggest that we had a very good one out there, and credit must go to the members of the police, to the law enforcement agencies who ensure that our plans are realized in practice.
I think a lot has been talked about the work the police has done in terms of its intelligence ahead of the local elections. We did see a lot of issues in Tshwane flaring up ahead of the elections there in the case of a new mayoral candidate. We've seen some incidences around the country, but talk to me quickly about just the kind of intelligence work that was done to make sure that we keep, as Alicia was mentioning, those hotspots in check.
Okay. When we communicated our plans, we made visible that we will have a pre-election phase during the election phase and post-election. We also went further in communicating the categorization of the various voting districts as in low, medium and high risk. That categorization was informed by intelligence at our disposal. The assessment that was made, which enabled us to deploy accordingly, because in each of those category of stations, you will deploy different numbers to respond to the situation at hand. And we are more than satisfied with what we have done during this process.
So we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much. The Acting Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Khomotso Patlani, talking to us about just some of maybe the incidences that have transpired over the last couple of days, but also the control that they've been able to exercise with some proper work done by the police. We now cross to Rotenda Maweshe in Polokwane, the hometown of EFF leader Julius Malema, and I think we'll touch on this with our analyst a little bit later, that the EFF have been not doing too well in their own hometown. Rutenda.
Thank you so much, Sam, and to all the viewers. Welcome once again to Limpopo's IEC Results Center. Yes, it is true, the EFF has been performing in somewhat lowly expected manner, in that it is according to one political party which we've been conversing with. They are saying that they were expecting the EFF in the province to weaken the African National Congress. Interestingly, the pattern has remained the same throughout the day, with over 70% of the casted votes counted so far. And there are certain municipalities where they've concluded counting, such as Maruleng, Murimule, and also areas such as Musina and other municipalities. As you come through now, Sam, we are going through a press conference where the PR here, Nkaro Mateta, is giving us the lowdown of what has been happening since morning, and also especially after the results centers closed at 7 p.m., where she had already shared that there is a complaint lodged by the EFF in Tabazimbi in Ward 7, where they're saying that they've lodged a complaint and they're going to look into that and also report back on the decision that they've taken. Another important issue that she has raised is the issue of other political parties who have tried to attempt to stop the counting, and then it later happened that the South African Police Services had to intervene. That was when calm was restored in those areas. Another important matter was that there are several non-compliance or objections that have been raised, and such will be followed by the IEC. And another important thing is that in Vuwani area, I understand that this morning we did receive reports that Vuwani and other surrounding villages, schooling did not necessarily resume, but what happened was that the correctional services had to step in to make sure that they offer clearing up services, and parents were also urged to go back and clean the schools. But you'll understand that on Monday it's going to be a schooling day, but they don't expect schooling to resume because Tuesday will be a holiday, and learning is expected to be starting again at a high speed on Wednesday. That is when the learners can also learners can continue with the catch-up program, which will be for all the grades. You will remember that the grade 12 learners were in different camps around the province, but as we speak now, they've been taken back to their respective schools, and those those pupils will be returning back to school with the others in other grades. And another important issue here is the independent candidates here in Limpopo. They were up to 100, but up to so far, 3 of them have won 3 wards, which is something that's very interesting. And also another issue as we go back to Vuwani and surrounding villages, in the Masakona village as well as Febwam, it is said that there was a 10-0 returned results, which means that the turnout there was somewhat not satisfactory. And also you'll remember that it is one of the areas which are declared to be a hotspot. But to get some sort of an analysis from the party agents who are joining us this evening, we will be talking shortly here with a number of guests who are joining us this evening. That includes UDM, AZAPO, Africa People's Socialist Party, and also the Congress of the People. But we'll start with AZAPO, with Mese Hapu Mohapa, and then she'll be filling us in on how she has seen the process so far and their performance in the province in general. Good evening, Welcome to SABC News.
Good evening.
Yes. How do you feel since the polling stations closed and the counting has started and the percentages have started trickling in? We can see your party there, Azapo. How do you feel about the way you've performed?
I'm just very excited because it's just I don't know how to put it. It's just a good start so that you can just see your mistakes and go visit where you have, visit back to your people, talk to them, and just tell them how did you work. I know that they are viewing us now.
Okay, but are you happy with the turnout of the people who went to cast their votes in general?
I'm very happy. I don't have any problem.
Okay. And how can you interpret the process so far? Are you satisfied with how the elections were run in the province, or how they continue to run since they're still counting results?
I'm just waiting till the process, because there's something I phoned my people at Mogalakwena. They said there's a conflict. We are going to come back early in the morning to restart. I don't know what is happening.
Okay, what is the conflict about?
It's just about the votes.
There seems to be a problem with the counting, with the voting. What is
the problem with the counting?
Okay, we'll find out from the IEC. All right. Right now, we're moving on to the United Democratic Front (UDM), which is also contesting municipal elections here in Limpopo. And we're now joined by Mesilomo Matlacho. She'll be filling in with how she has viewed the process so far as the results have started trickling in.
Good evening, ma'am.
Your time is much appreciated. As UDM, how do you feel about your performance so far since the results have started coming in?
It's an exciting moment. I want to indicate that as UDM, we are very much satisfied with whatever has happened. And according to us, everything has gone well, and we are really satisfied with the wards that the municipalities that we have registered. We are very much satisfied, and everything is fine.
All right. And what are you expecting? Are you anticipating on getting certain words? How do you think you're going to perform at the end of the day?
It's a normal process. When you go to a competition, your expectation is to win. What I'm saying is that we are hoping that we are going to get something in all the municipalities that we have registered.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
All right. Right now, we're moving on to another party, which is called the African People's Socialist Party, and we're joined by Ndate Khanti Magala, who will be filling us in still on their performance as APSP. Good evening and welcome to SABC News.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for having me right now.
Yes.
We as the African People's Socialist Party, for the first time we contest these elections, and we highly appreciate the way we established ourselves, and we say party well established. And let me also announce to all the
Okay, that's the view from our Jimmy Jib across the action area here at the IEC ROC Rotenda Mawisha, doing the job for us in Limpopo. Okay, before we continue that conversation, I want to have a chat to you, Prof, about the EFF statement earlier, Floyd Shivambu saying that they're quite happy with their campaign, but not doing well in your stronghold is a big issue. We'll talk about that. Let's take an ad break. When we come back, we'll untackle some of the issues that is playing themselves out in that part of South Africa.
Mr. President, thank you for choosing the moon.
Oh, this view is magnificent. This has to be the proudest day of our lives.
Not hungry, huh?
Is he eating?
Nope.
Okay, Commander. Come with me.
Roger, 5 or 10
5-second countdown.
Eagle looking great, you're go. Roger, looks great, Houston.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff. We have liftoff.
Macro's 45th Big Birthday Bash, and our gift to you is big savings. Get the Samsung 55-inch Smart SUHD TV for only 16,999, save 5,000 Rand. Or the Russell Hobbs stainless steel food processor, only 899, save 700 Rand. And save 500 Rand on the Tefal 7-piece non-stick cookware set, now only 999. Get these and many other great deals in-store and online with Macro's Big Birthday Bash. Macro, big on life.
The person we're searching for. The guy who steps up. Way up. The queen of the pop and lock. And whatever this is. The party train conductor. All aboard. The answer is yes. You are that guy. And we salute you, party comrade. Join the movement online.
Welcome back. We are coming to you live still from The Rock here in Pretoria. And of course, we just want to understand from our analyst. I mean, it seems that we heard Floyd's comments earlier on of the EFF about the EFF doing well. And it seems that every party official there says they're saying that the party is growing. And yet we see the results in their strongholds not particularly doing them justice. What do you say to that?
Generally, though, they are growing. They are a new party. But then you tend to judge them differently depending on where you are looking. Limpopo is the party's home base. So you would expect them to do there a lot better than elsewhere, right? So if they're not, perhaps it's still early to tell, right? Less than 50% has been counted. But there's a lot of pressure to do well there. But also, there's another variable, which is that Limpopo remains a rural province. Which is, as we've now come to establish, the ANC does well there because of high degree of dependence on the state. Rural voters are very indebted to the ANC because of that. And also you've heard a very cohesive party in Limpopo. Premier Matabata as well was chairperson there. So you don't have the infighting, more or less, where, you know, you've seen in other provinces, and the EFF has exploited those divisions. So Matabata came in and consolidated structures to some degree. And of course, we had a lot of problems there with government, this and that, and perhaps that's something one is a bit surprised that opposition parties are not exploiting, but it's still early days. But overall, there is pressure for EFF to do well there because that's their home province, but balance that against an ANC that has been quite good in providing services to rural people in terms of social welfare services.
Just to ride on the back of that, sorry Sam, I mean, Prof, you spoke about this when we started this conversation, the fact that, you know, a party usually will invest in terms of campaigning where they know that they will gain some ground. So what happened here?
They probably did invest quite a lot. Their last rally was in Limpopo. But again, they are not fighting this contest alone. They are also facing a somewhat okay ANC in terms of a premier who's been very conscientious, a moral authority kind of person who's done fairly reasonably well and then again contending against ANC, fairly established welfare service in the rural areas. So those are two formidable factors to contend against.
So let me play a bit of a soothsayer here. With more than 80% of the vote in, what will be, and I want you to maybe to predict a little bit, what will be a horror situation for the ANC as we move towards that final results tomorrow? What would be a horror situation for the DA? And maybe from an EFF perspective, we've already worked out that they're not doing too well in Limpopo, but it's still early days. Paint the worst scenario for me for the top three parties.
I mean, for the two parties, the DA and the EFF, they've already surpassed their expectations. They've already done well, so I can't foresee a horror situation there. But for the ANC, because they are outstanding results for them, that count a lot for the party. If they were to lose Johannesburg, that would be a horror situation. Tshwane was somewhat expected. And PE, there were a lot of problems going into this election. They considered that there were serious problems, but they thought they might just win. But if they drop below, looks like they will, that's a horror, but a horror of horrors.
At the moment, yeah.
A horror of horrors is the ANC remaining at 53 or ending at 55. Sure. 55% instead of their national take. That's a serious one. That's a horrible situation.
All right, and unfortunately, Professor, thank you so much for joining us. That was our political analyst, Professor Mcebisi Ndletyana. Thank you so much for joining us, but do not despair. There's the next team that is coming up. I see Mr. Blaine Herman as well as Miss Francis coming up, and they will be taking over the 24-hour coverage of the vote counting. Sam?
Yeah, and of course we'll be unpacking those results as they come in. Our experts are in studio, and as Alicia was saying, we'll keep it minute by minute up to date in terms of what's happening nationally, what's happening at the metros and in the municipalities. This is probably, and it's been billed as such, one of the most historic elections we've ever had in this country.
Absolutely.
So we'll keep you on it blow by blow.
All right, and of course we've got the hashtag there at elections at sabc.co.za for more information. Our hashtag is elections at SABC. Thank you so much for joining us.
From us, ciao, ciao.
It's Macro's 45th Big Birthday Bash, and our gift to you is big savings. Get 10 litres Dulux Luxurious Silk White Paint for only $4.99, save R500, or the Campmaster Cabin 900 tent plus side panels, now only $2,999, save R1,200, and save R40 on Ultra Image A4 office paper, now only $189. Get these and many other great deals in store and online with Macro's Big Birthday Bash. Macro, big on life.